If you're a Yao, Ya or Yawa, today is your big day. Welcome aboard the AM show on a Thursday morning, and always grateful to host you. Start your morning right here on the AM show on Joy News. My name is Benjamin Akako. I always do this in the company of Bernice Abupedu Lanza. We love you. Now, coming up this morning, the news will be served, and right after that, for the news review, we'll be joined by the Executive Director, Parliamentary Network Africa, Sami Obeng. He is our guest. What do we have lined up for you in terms of the big stories? I'll tell you. We'll be hosting Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram, Sam George, and we're going to be dilating on everything with him, from what has been happening with the OSP and Charles Bissu, the Galamsey front, what has happened in terms of the commentary on the ratings agencies, the National Cathedral, the whole works. We're going to get into all those salient matters with him. Of course, we cannot shelve what's happening within his party, the National Democratic Congress. We've got that conversation coming up. We also have a conversation on narcotics. Yes. We'll be talking about drug-related diseases and how to stem the tide of same. We'll be interacting with the Narcotics Authority on the show. But once more, have you checked your sickling status? Do you know your status? Do you know whether you are AA, AS, AC, among others? If you don't, it's a hazard. Don't wait till you're surprised. We'll be discussing what you should know in all of this and how you can better live your life if you've got the sickling cell. And later on the show, you'd have the chance to join us with your views via phone and on social media as well, like we always do it. So just stay with us and we'll be right back with the news. Let's settle for the news now, and in our first story, the independent power producers, IPPs, are forcefully demanding government pay 30% of debt owed its members or risk the national grid being shut off indefinitely after June the 30th. Now, the latest threat comes in the wake of government's failure to commence payment negotiations with the IPPs. Currently, government owes the IPPs over $1.4 billion out of a $2 billion total energy sector debt. A couple of weeks ago, Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Dubik Mahama, told Joy News that his outfit was leading talks with the independent power producers to avoid a possible shutdown of the power plants.
Had very, very productive discussions, and they would not go off, with all confidence. I would say ignore, because we do owe them. So I would say ignore, but what I'll say is that the conversations are far advanced to avert something like this. And so I can say with all confidence that it won't come to that. There are a few NDAs in place, but let me give you a small whole. We are trying to find a way to make sure that the money expected of us to pay is reasonable and is within our reach. Because what IMF is saying that ring-fence legacy debt, but you have to stay current. If those excess and idle capacity charges are still existent, we cannot be current, because we will still be punching above our weight limit. So we need to find a way with all of them at the table to agree on an amount or a tariff that halts these excess payments for a longer period of time, and then we can consider it in a different form for them. In fairness, everybody has a different way of how they set up the plant. Yeah. Some of them self-financed, so they don't really have lenders that are disturbing them. Others have lenders that are disturbing them. As I said, everybody's problem is different.
Well, the IPPs, however, discount such negotiations and that have been had with government. Elikblim Apetogbo is CEO of the Chamber of IPPs.
We've not received any substantive payment to sustain our operation or our pressing obligations that we need to fulfill to our stakeholders. So I can say we've not made any improvement in our efforts to have our arrears paid.
Initially, we were told that the ECG is supposed to lead some negotiations with you to do some monthly payment to defray the debt over time. Has that negotiation started so far?
No, we've not had any negotiation in that regard. None of the IPPs has been engaged in any conversation or discussion regarding that proposal. Besides, if they talk about monthly payment, our bills have to be settled within a specific time frame that we call a credit period. Usually, we can say 40 to 45 days. So we expect periodic payments as and when revenues are collected to be disbursed. And we expect that by the end of those credit periods, the monthly bill or invoice will have been settled fully. But that is not the case. So I don't think it requires any new negotiation in that regard.
Does that mean that you haven't heard anything officially from government since you put out that notice?
Nothing officially from government, except for some interventions that has been made by the World Bank with the Ministry of Finance. What we heard unofficially was that government says they do not have that money to pay. So I can say that is the only feedback we heard unofficially.
What was the World Bank's proposal?
I cannot tell exactly what the proposal was, but they were just sharing concern about the situation and with the assurance to engage government. But actually, that is the feedback we got.
With all of this playing, will our lights be on after 30th June?
Definitely. If there is no remedial action, I cannot guarantee light from 30th June.
Which will mean that almost half of the power that feeds homes and industries in Ghana would go off. Is there anything else government can do to avoid the lights going off?
The ball is still in the court of government or ECG. We have made a demand. Actually, they should show a good faith and say that, looking at the condition at stake, can we offer you 20%? And we have always cooperated all this well. They've not shown any good faith towards our demand, but our demand is purely based on what we need to solve our challenges. There has not been any counter proposal from them.
Well, still on that beat, former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor is asking government to retrofit simple cycle thermal power plants into combined cycle ones. Debt is crippling the country's power sector, with the IPPs threatening to shut down their plants if the government does not pay their $1.5 billion debt. Speaking to Joy News, the Pro East MP argued the conversion of existing simple cycle plants into combined cycled ones would increase availability capacity at a lower cost to enable the country export power through the West African power pool. Dr. Donkor has therefore admonished the government to cease lamentation over excess capacity charges and lead the way through policy in ensuring export of power.
This discussion to efficiency. There is the market in Burkina Faso. There is increased demand from Mali and Niger. We are unable to meet the demands there, partly because the belief is that our power is slightly more expensive than from other places. But for some of them, they are potentially a captive market. If we drive efficiency, the world will be our oyster. Let's move the discussion from the pedestrian and let's go to the thorough. Let's look at thorough arguments, thorough discussions. Let's look at progressive improvement in efficiency. How many simple cycle plants do we have? Cal Power is also a simple cycle plant. We should be providing the incentive and moving towards combined cycle plants. AXA. So that is, from the generation side, that is where I want the Ministry of Energy, Energy Commission, and all the other stakeholders. That should be our thrust, moving towards generation efficiency.
Now, on our next story, an Accra High Court has granted a request by the NDC's James Quayson to be allowed to miss court proceedings on Friday. This will give him room to embark on his final round of campaigning ahead of Tuesday's by-election. His legal team has in the last few days made a strong case for the suspension of the trial, insisting the poll is a national assignment. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable reports.
The legal arguments on Wednesday centered mainly around some comments that the Attorney General had made, which the lawyers of Mr. Quayson considered to be inappropriate, and they put that before the court. The AG defended himself and insisted that those comments he made were within law. At the court, he had asked the court to actually strike out some documents that had been presented making reference to those statements, but the court disagreed and admitted them, after which it heard arguments on whether or not it should put the case on hold. The court took the view that it was going to deliver its ruling on that particular matter on June 23. A request was made by Mr. Chikata that Mr. Quayson be allowed to excuse himself on that particular day. Another request that the court also granted. And so the court will be sitting on June 23 to deliver its ruling in respect of whether the trial should be put on hold. But the NDC's legal directorate, led by Abraham Amaliba, insists that they believe that the AG is conducting himself in a manner that is inconsistent with the law.
Adjourned to 23rd, which means that tomorrow we are not coming to court, but on the 23rd, the court, in its own wisdom, dispense of his presence in court, which means that effectively he is supposed to come after the elections. And so clearly, we want to be thankful to the court, the judge, and to say that we are most grateful for the ruling given to us today, because we have achieved what we wanted to achieve. You notice that Mr. Chikata's supplementary affidavit was supposed to give to the court a plethora of conduct that the Attorney General has displayed, which conduct does not sit well with our legal profession. And you notice that he quoted the Legal Profession Act, which does not allow for comments such as what the Attorney General engaged in. And so the Attorney General's conduct was an issue before the court. And I'm happy the senior Charles Chikata took him to the cleaners.
Deputy Attorney General Alfred Tuayebua strongly disagrees with this particular view.
The court adjourned the matter to the 23rd. And when it comes to adjournment, it is the duty of the court to determine when it's convenient to hear a matter. And the court also made an order dispensing with the presence of our attendance of the accused person. The judge has made an order. We are bound by the orders of the court. On the 23rd, we'll be in court. And it's sending a very dangerous precedent that we can use any means to frustrate processes. But we are cool with it. We'll be back on Friday. Then we'll come back and hear the matter.
I mean, in terms of the comments that happened in court today, it appears they have some serious issues with the conduct of the Attorney General. I mean, how is the office treating these allegations of prejudice that is being leveled against the AG?
They've never laid any basis. There's nothing to hold on to. It's being made out of frustration and nothing else. The AG has done absolutely nothing wrong. His comments have been on point, and if they think something on top has been done by the AG, they know what to do.
One individual who had wanted to lead the opposition NDC as its flag bearer, Kojo Bonsu, was here to support Mr. Quayson, and he says what is happening in the court is setting a bad precedent.
I think this is totally unfair, and we're going through the rules of the law. We can't be coming here daily as the man is campaigning. Anyway, let's see what happens on Friday. And I think the judge did very well. Said we should just rest and come in on Friday. And I think we are watching. It's precedent that they are trying to set. And it's going to be a problem in this country. But I believe that justice must prevail.
So the case is back in court on June 23. Mr. Quayson believes it offers him the opportunity to go about with his campaign. Quayson, are you satisfied with the outcome?
Well, I mean, It's already been expressed, so I'm not going to comment further.
But you are ready to get onto the campaign grounds now?
I'm leaving court and going right down to the grounds, yes.
I mean, so far in terms of how it's going, you are confident that you are going to win the seat once again?
Already won.
He's going to win. He's going to win.
For Joy News from the Law Courts Complex, my name is Joseph Akable.
Let's talk health now. The Ministry of Health says it is committed to including mental health treatment in the National Health Insurance Scheme's benefit package. Deputy Minister of Health, Asay Saini, made this known at the Mental Health Authority Stakeholders Performance Annual Meeting in Accra.
Data from the World Health Organization states that 650,000 people are suffering from severe mental health disorder and a further 2,166,000 are suffering from a moderate to mild mental disorder. Deputy Minister for Health, Mahama Asay Saini, revealed that the Ministry of Health has requested data and decisions from the Mental Health Authority and stakeholders to determine the possibility and impact of adding mental health treatment to the National Health Insurance Scheme benefit package. He indicates that this aligns with the Akufo-Addo-led government's efforts at meeting the universal health coverage that targets and covers all Ghanaians.
I have the belief that the government is committed and we are going to do more funding. We are beginning to look at mental health in relationship with national health insurance. And you see that's why we brought the National Health Insurance Financial Controller. At the end of the day, they will discuss and see how national health insurance will be collaborated to take care of mental health patients as well. National health insurance is going to take care of mental health patients and other activities, so that at least the funding expanding, and with government support and donor support, stakeholder support, philanthropic support, churches and everything, if they all come together, this issue of financial constraints will be eased for now.
Chief Executive Officer of Mental Health Authority, Professor Penaman Apo, in an interview with Joy News, stated that one of her visions in becoming the new CEO of the authority is to strengthen collaboration between stakeholders and the authority to improve mental health in the country.
The vision for the authority during my tenure for the next 8 years or so, we're looking at collaboration being one of the main pillars in our vision, and we want to improve the collaboration with our with the other agencies. So we're looking at Ghana Health Services, we're looking at CHAG, we're looking at even the universities and all other agencies that can help us achieve our goal, basically. And our major goal, our main goal, if our basic goal, should I say, is to bring mental health care to the doorstep of the ordinary Ghanaian. That's what we're trying to do. So we think that instead of all the agencies working individually, or what we call in silos, if we come together and collaborate, then we would have a better effect in providing these mental health needs for mental health care for the people of Ghana.
The stakeholders' engagement will give the authority an opportunity to review their performance against their set targets, major achievements and challenges which had an impact on their operations during the year. For Joy News, Jacqueline Ansuma Yeboah.
Now, the National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Emmanuel Kotia, has revealed his outfit is seeking more funding to help it support government's efforts in mitigating the challenges that exist in border communities by providing them with basic social amenities. He spoke when some students of the Royal Danish Defence College paid a familiarization visit to the Commission. The students lauded the Commission's work, saying they were impressed with its work to secure the maritime and land boundaries of the country.
The aim of the visit by the Royal Danish Defence College was for the students to familiarize themselves with the mandate and activities of the Commission since its operationalization in 2021. It also formed part of a series of engagements the delegation from RDDC is undertaking towards exploring issues of marginalization, segmentation, security and development in West African countries. A member of the team, Elizabeth Pedersen, says she's impressed with how the Ghana Boundary Commission is deliberately addressing security matters differently and targeting specific issues.
Well, I've been very impressed from what I've seen today, also because it takes time to talk to us and tell us about the security issues that Ghana is facing. I've been very impressed with the way that you are dealing with the issues that you have here, especially on the boundary protection issues. The fact that you are deliberately addressing security matters differently and targeting issues specifically. There are no common solutions to any problems, but you are addressing the very root causes of the problems, and I'm very impressed with that.
A worker at the Royal Danish Defence College, Martin Jorgensen, said he's amazed about how the Commission has worked to ensure deep cooperation among Ghana and her neighbours.
And it has been an absolute pleasure to come and visit this border commission. And I'm very impressed to see that in only 12 years, 13 years, you've managed to come from nothing to having a functioning border commission, working together with all the local countries in the region, establishing cooperation, trying to solve the many issues that can be regarding these boundaries, the delimitation of countries, and how you're specifically pointing down to several solutions to the exact problems, not just one big solution to all the problems, but the exact solutions to all the minor problems that you can find regarding these boundaries.
A lecturer at the college, Professor Thomas Mandrop, said Major General Yumanokotia gave a really important insight to the students.
So he gave a really important insight to the students and then insight to the potential donor countries on how we could actually cooperate on these issues and maybe secure for a joint and better future for everybody.
National Coordinator of the Ghana Boundary Commission, Major General Yumanokotia, briefed the team on the work of the Commission to protect Ghana's land and maritime boundaries. He says the Commission is also working to support government in mitigating some of the challenges that exist in deprived border communities in the country.
You don't have water. What we do is construct boreholes, and I can tell you that we started making inquests and we've done a number of research in it, and we have targeted certain places. I can tell you happily that the ECOWAS Commission is currently sponsoring a program in the border region for us to rehabilitate a clinic, which is very good. Ghana government, as a result of our work, has released some money for us to construct a road to a deprived area which do not have any roads. People could only access them by motorbikes. So that is what we're doing, and we're seeking for more funding to be able to intervene in those areas.
Director in charge of policy planning and programs at the Commission, Sarah Ekuba, has been providing further details on the purpose of the visit by the delegation from the Royal Danish Defence College. Yes.
Well, government's failure to fix deplorable roads in the Shai Osudoko district of the Greater Accra region is a ticking time bomb. This is the message traditional authorities and residents of Doyumu, Kodiabe, Asibi, and other communities want to put across, having been neglected for decades. The residents on Tuesday protested the bad nature of their roads. Tema correspondent Kwame Yanka has the rest of the story.
Despite attempts by some individuals to have the demonstration cancelled, the disgruntled residents were resolute. Clad in red and black, the protest started at Doyumu, then to Kojabe under police protection. From there, the protesters returned to the Doyumu stretch which connects the Tema-Kosumbu highway. They then decided to block the highway for about 10 minutes, obstructing traffic to express their displeasure, but the police managed to restore flow of traffic. According to them, the highway, construction of Tema Port and other national projects have been done with the very quarry products from the area. Blonya Tomache at Doyumu, Nene Anoba Saswaku II says their cry to have their road network put in good shape have fallen on deaf ears.
For about 24 years now, our roads are in bad condition. We've sounded this to the government several times. They've all turned their ears back on us. It's unfortunate when you board a vehicle from Kofodia coming to Doyumu. When they get to Agomeda, they tell you the road network is very bad, so they are not passing through Doyumu. And from Kofodia to Tema, the shortest route is when you fly from Latte straight through Doyumu, then you are on the Akosombo Highway. We as people of Shai here, the whole country with quarry products, we are number one. We supply almost half of the country with granite stones, which they use in constructing this our roads. Why is it that they've turned their deaf ears on us? Today, when you want to board a vehicle from Doimu to Ashaiman, they will tell you because of the road, they've increased the fares.
Unit Committee Chair of Adam Electoral Area at Kojabe, Samson Tetebiante, says they deserve better, having over 50 quarry companies in the area.
There are over 54 quarries at the stretch of the Tema-Akosombo Highway, which belongs to the people of Shai. It is being mined every day, exported to different continents in the world to construct their roads. Why are we being neglected? We are pleading with the government. This is not what they promised us during the 2020 elections campaign. They met us, promised us that if we turn MPP in power, they were going to fix our roads. Up to now, we've seen nothing done about it. We are pleading with the government to come to our aid. It is time for the youth of Shai to stand up and fight for our rights, fix our roads. Else, in the next general election, which is 2024, we are going to stand against them. That's no road, no vote. No road, no vote.
Youth leader from Doimu, Prosper Kwame Tete, listed some daily challenges they face on the road.
The deteriorating infrastructure has resulted in significant hardship for the residents, commuters, and businesses alike. We are confronted daily with a multitude of problems that negatively impact our lives, including safety hazards, impaired mobility and transportation, increased travel time and transportation costs, negative impact on agriculture and trade, limited access to emergency services. We, therefore, earnestly request your immediate attention to this matter and appeal that the roads of Shai be constructed in shortest possible time.
These areas will not take part in the 2024 general election if the roads are not fixed.
Now, see, asthmatic patients by prayer or program, and I'm foot rohunti, and Kuala Bawa, and your foot roy, says I am Trassi, Nana Due.
Kwame Yankes reports for Joy News.
And that's how we wrap the news this morning. But stay with us because the news review is up next with the man, Sammy. We'll be joined by him from the Parliamentary Network Africa. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us for the newspaper review. Shortly, we'll be joined by Samuel Bing. He is with the Parliamentary Network Africa. But let me just tell you about that institution that helps us bring you the newspaper review segment on the AM show. I'm talking about the Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. If you haven't heard of them today, pay attention. If you're a man, they're offering you prostate screening gratis for free. If you're a woman, they're offering you fertility screening for free. If you've never checked your fertility status, if you've never checked out what may be going on around your womb and everything else, this is the time to do so. Many people, male, female, are coming up with so many things. Don't take anything for granted. And that is why I'm proffering for you that you should make tracks to the Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here's where you can locate them. Here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronum Abwehia behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate. If you're in Tema, you can locate them in Community 22. Then there's Techiman Hanswa and Siama in Zima. If you'd like to reach them via the phone lines, which I suggest you do, you can reach them on 0244 867 068 0244 867-068 or 0274 234 321 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But bringing us just to the start of the newspaper review segment, and I have a stack of newspapers with me this morning. Well, a small stack, I should say. I'll be getting into the details from there. The Quayson situation has come to the fore, and I'll be telling you a bit more about that. But you know that song, Ghana, we now have freedom. That song got me thinking this morning from when we took the break. Do we really have freedom in its proper sense? I mean, contemplate independence, what it means, whether as an individual or as a country. So on the 6th of March, 1957, some 63 years ago, we earned our independence. We supposedly broke the shackles, the fetters that had impeded our growth, our progress as a country. Kwame Nkrumah, the Osagyefo, would say, Ghana, our beloved country, is free forever. He would go on to say, we face neither east nor west, we face forward. But I ask, have we really made tracks? Have we really moved forward? Ghana, land of freedom. I think it is now Ghana, land of bondage. Because economically we're shackled. Financially we're shackled. Mentally in many ways we're shackled. Even in terms of religion, in some ways, we're shackled. So is this truly the land of freedom? You think about it and let me know. With all the things that are happening, with all the excesses that take place, I mean, it's not to say we're the worst possible scenario, but it's to say, as the Bible will put it, to whom much is given, much is required. So if you've been given much, the expectation is higher. When you join us on this show every morning, you join us because the expectations are high, and we strive every day to meet those expectations. In fact, to surpass those expectations. It's the same with Ghana. The promise was great, but 63 years on, where have we got to? And how much have we attained? Look at our peers, contemporaries at the time. And I say contemporaries on a certain level because India, when they got their independence around the same time we did. In fact, economically, we were almost on par or at par at the time. Malaysia, look at Singapore. Look at all of these giants now economically and what they have attained and where we find ourselves. To the point where now we're bickering with international ratings agencies, credit rating agencies. Instead of, ensuring that our economies are above water so that even with the shocks, why I feel there's been so much failure. We failed with Dumso, at least we got it remedied. Kudos to the former administration, but also no kudos to them for allowing it to happen in the first place. And now, we say COVID-19 and the Russo-Ukrainian war. Fair deal. But any rational person prepares for that rainy day. That is what you do. If you're earning a lot today, you don't take things for granted and think, oh, it will always be there. We have that local proverb, prom prom, and tehoda. So we fail to plan. And you know what happens when you fail to plan? You plan to fail. Anyway, those are just a brief collection of thoughts I wanted to share with you this morning. And all of that was just triggered by that song. Ghana, land of freedom. Are we really free? Let's get into the newspapers this morning. And we'll be starting with the Daily Guide newspaper. That's where we'll be starting from. We're joined by Sami Obeng. He is with the Parliamentary Network Africa. A very good morning to you, Mr. Obeng.
Good morning.
I don't know, I didn't know you had already been on cue. Any reflections on what I just shared? Ghana, land of freedom. I think it's Ghana, land of bondage, looking at the many things we have to face. And there are a number of things that have been happening in Parliament. Any one of them you'd like to reflect on before we get into the papers?
Well, I did not really. I don't think I was on cue at the time that you were having those reflection.
Okay, that's fine. I was just reflecting on, we play the song with one of our promos, Ghana, Land of Freedom, you remember it. And I was just thinking, are we really free? Is it not Ghana, land of bondage after independence and everything that happened, and where we still are economically and all of that? I mean, the mere word independence, you are not so dependent. In fact, you are not. But in our case, we are so dependent economically, every facet of our lives. And I was just reflecting on that. That was the little bit I was reflecting on. And then Parliament has also been active. You've heard of the stories there, Muntaka, and among others, and the Quayson situation. Any quick thoughts before we get into the papers?
Well, yes, I clearly understand and appreciate the angle you're coming in from on our lack of independence. As to outright bondage, I think perhaps I may differ a bit.
Definitely not outright bondage, but we're not exactly free.
But we can still be optimistic and hope that when we all put shoulders to the wheel, we can get our country out of the situation it finds itself in. But it requires some concerted efforts. The current pace and efforts at which this is happening is really not the kind of situation that would take us or make us the land of freedom as our forebears actually envisaged. And yeah, Parliament has started around this time. Of course, we expect that on a daily basis we'll have very interesting news coming out of Parliament. Unfortunately, the numbers in the House is still a struggle.
They've not been encouraging, but that's partly because a lot of them have been going to support James Quayson and Kasilato Force and the minority leader.
That's right. That's happening. In some instances, also the folks within the NPP also have been, campaigning, but also following flag bearer aspirants to file nominations and what have you. But these things are to be expected around this time. I always argue that it behoves on the whips of the various caucuses to ensure that at least the numbers that makes up for the quorate numbers to allow parliamentary business to go on are present, so that at least, even if the bulk of members of parliament are not around, as we can see sometimes in many other jurisdictions, parliamentary business will still not suffer.
Well, let's get into the stories now. The Daily Graphic newspaper. High Court rules on Quayson's trial timelines. Tomorrow, well, in fact, those dynamics, some of which we've been discussing, but I'll give you the scoop on that. Constitutional review, chiefs demand more powers. I found the story so interesting. I'll be getting into it, both of them on page 16. The banner headline, 40,000 barrel boost oil production. 40,000 barrels boost oil production. Tallow partners now drill over 100,000 per day. And with all of that, with the fact that we're the largest producer of gold on the continent, with all our oil and everything, we're still where we are. Afrexim Bank Springfield signs $750 million loan agreement, and Charles Bissu arrested, then granted bail. That's the story. On the back page, 97 animals die from anthrax in the Upper East, and NBSG crowns Blood Donor Month celebration. If you've not been donating blood, it's an emergency situation in our country. You ought to consider that. But let's get into the stories now. The country's oil production has received a major boost with the addition of about 40,000 barrels of oil per day from the Greater Jubilee Field. Now, the breakthrough by Tallow Oil Ghana and its partners has now restored production from the Jubilee Field to over 100,000 barrels of oil per day, up from the 85,000 barrels of oil per day being produced from the field for the past 3 years. The FPSO Kwame Nkrumah, the production vessel on the Jubilee Field, has the capacity to process about 120,000 barrels of oil per day. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is expected to turn on the valves next month to signal the production of additional oil, and the first from the Jubilee Southeast well. Now, the increase in production comes with enormous benefits to the country, including more revenue for the state, including the companies in the value chain, skills transfer, more jobs, and local content for the participation of indigenous companies. And they also, the Daily Graphic captures the graphic showbiz headline, Yvonne Nelson needs to heal well, Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur. And what has he been saying? That story is on page 39. A clinical psychologist, Dr. Isaac Newman Arthur, is encouraging actress Yvonne Nelson to seek professional and medical attention following the narration of her life story in her latest book, I Am Not Yvonne Nelson. Any quick thoughts on these before we get into the stories on page 16?
Well, it is always refreshing to hear or read that our country has found, additional resources, natural resources, for every institution, country, individual, additional streams of income are always good news. But like Professor Mills of blessed memory had said when we had discovered first oil, these things do not move us out of the woods. Just paraphrasing him, it doesn't mean that we are out of the woods, and we have noticed that most often than not, these new discoveries do not bring the kind of joy that it is actually supposed to be bringing. We are hoping that as the many hardworking men and women on the various oil fields do their best, our country will be better for it. Exciting book, launched by Yvonne Nelson.
Yesterday it was number 3 on Amazon.
Yes, indeed. It remains within her right to share her memoirs. It takes guts to be able to put forward a lot of very revealing things about oneself. And I'm not too sure whether it was an exhibition of her weakness or challenges, or challenges in her state of mind or what have you. I think that it's rather, a show of strength, really, to be able to put this out. I have had conversations with a few people around this subject matter, many of whom have started reading. I have not had the privilege to read. I've just seen excerpts. And for some of them, it's actually serving as a source of inspiration for them.
Right.
In one area of their lives or the other. For me, these are the essence of books. Like our very own Manasseh, who wrote the foreword, which I have read, stated and quoted Chinua Achebe. The writer's role really is not to provide prescriptions, but to provide headaches for the reader eventually. And so for me, it looks like a fantastic, right piece, and I think that the lady needs to be commended, and more of these should be encouraged, where people are sharing their life stories to serve as lessons for others to emulate.
And I couldn't agree with you more. There are those who have said that she didn't display. There's a counselor that I'm familiar with who said she didn't display emotional intelligence. One thing I know for sure, when you come out with memoirs, pieces like this, there'll be those who will say negative things, there'll be those who will say positive things. But bottom line, she has shared her story. It will impact many different people, and we only hope that that impact will be positive. And that is the bottom line. But getting into other stories, constitutional review, chiefs demand more powers. And 3 traditional rulers have called for a constitutional review to empower chiefs to contribute more meaningfully to the socio-economic development of the country. They explained that the country was unable to deal effectively with its developmental challenges, including the war against illegal mining, also known as Galamsey, because chiefs seemed marginalized in governance issues. The traditional rulers who made the call were the president of the Eastern Regional House of Chiefs, Nene Sakite II, the president of the Central Regional House of Chiefs, or therefore Amuakwa Buedu the 7th, and the Osu Ga Wulomo, who is also Gua Wulomo, who is also the acting president of the Osu Traditional Council, Numo Belenfo III. What do you make of this call? Maybe let me just add the High Court's issue, and then you can reflect on both. Now, the High Court hearing the forgery and perjury cases against embattled James Jachi Quayson will on Friday, that is tomorrow, give its ruling on a motion filed by lawyers for the accused person regarding the timelines for the trial. Justice Mary Mami Ikwe Yanzu, who fixed the date for the ruling on the motion, asking the court to hear the case only after the Asin North by-election, said Quayson's presence was not needed on the said date. They have granted him some leave, so from Friday he can campaign. And in fact, yesterday he said he was going straight there till sometime next week, Tuesday. Any thoughts on these two stories?
Well, as a son of an Odikro, I certainly can understand the importance of chieftaincy in our socioeconomic, structures as a country. And of course, coming from three important, traditional leaders, I know that these matters are important for us to reflect on. I certainly believe that the chieftaincy institution has not been utilized well, to be able to, help us as a country navigate some of the challenges that we have, because, this is an institution that can be of enormous benefit to our growth as a country. If we would reflect back to our roots, we would reflect, on where we have come from, who we are as a people, and really identify, how these institutions that existed pre-colonial era really help to benefit us as a country. Then we'll be able to make the most of it. So yes, I completely agree that, whenever we are considering constitutional reviews, when the constitutional review process, is happening, some of the indications that were listed as part of, empowering the chieftaincy institution to be able to do more would certainly be taken into account. Mr. Quayson is contesting elections. Obviously, it is within his right to, ask for some of these things so that he can be able to focus on it. His lawyers will definitely do their best. Of course, lawyers for the states, in this case, the people from the Attorney General's department will also try to do whatever they would do towards these efforts. But I personally believe that, especially for a situation like this, priority should be given to Mr. Quayson being able to exercise his full rights as somebody contesting an elections, so that in the end, he can come deal with the issues that have been leveled against him.
What do you think, though? Interesting thought. On the back of the chieftaincy institution, yes, the chiefs still do enjoy some wide powers, especially going higher, paramountcies and all of that. But with the power that they have now, do you feel they've lived up to expectation?
Well, I feel that many of them have. Of course, there are still, just like in any institution, many who would not be living up to expectation and therefore becoming the bad nuts that are spoiling the bunch. But certainly, I think that we cannot underestimate at all the importance and significance of chiefs and the chieftaincy institution, queen mothers, traditional rulers generally in where we are as a country. They were instrumental in independence fight. They've been instrumental post-independence. Many of them have actually contributed to the peace and stability that we have as a country, including political stability as we have. Many of them have been instrumental in the development of their respective communities and what have you. And so we cannot really use the examples of the few bad nuts to generalize for the entire chieftaincy institution. But certainly, I really, really believe that, this is an institution, if well leveraged, could be of tremendous benefit to us as a country.
Well, let's take a look at this story very briefly. NPP presidential primary, 3 more filed nomination forms. Former General Secretary and Presidential Spokesperson Kwabena Ejapong, Member of Parliament for Asin Central Kennedy Ohene Ejapong, and a businessman and energy expert Ernest Kwadwo and Safwa Poku, all of them filing. There's also, let me just go on the international front very briefly, and then we shall make tracks. Africa denounces Western countries' aid double standard, as some African leaders are raising their voices against rich countries that are quick to pour billions of dollars into Kiev, but do not always live up to their commitments to the continent. At the latest meeting of the IMF and the World Bank in Washington in April, quote, African countries expressed fears about double standards in terms of international aid, a French government source said. But that is what also happens when you become dependent on aid. So the one who is giving it to you, I mean, at some point we all need help. But if that becomes chronic, if it's your perpetual situation, how many times have we been at the doorstep of the IMF? Then there is a problem. I don't know whether you have any take on that, but if you do, just hold your horses for me. Let me add the Daily Guide newspaper. Kennedy shakes MPP in flag bearer race. There's Ghana Link grants OSP ICOM's platform access. And then minority attacks Bawumia. Maintain free SHS at all cost. Let's just take a quick swipe at some of these stories, and then I'll let you come in. Now, the executive director of Child Rights International, Bright Appiah, has asked the government not to allow any external pressures to make Ghana abandon any of its social intervention programs, especially the free senior high school program. He has also called on the government to come clear on its position regarding key social intervention programs in the wake of the IMF bailout program. Of course, you know, there have been suggestions about the free SHS being poorly targeted, in the words of the IMF. That's the backstory. Then there is, I think I would go to page 9 for that story. Let me just do this very quickly. So the chairman of Ghana Link Network Services, not that story. Yes, the chairman of the Ghana Link Network Services Limited, Nick Dansoeje, has announced the company's readiness to grant executive access to the Integrated Customs Management System platform following a request from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Some importers and exporters were not happy with that concern that had been raised by the OSP, that request, but here we're being told that it will be granted. Any thoughts on these stories, Sammy?
Yes, let me start with the initial one about African leaders and
the double standards when it comes to aid
issues. Unfortunately, the story didn't seem to specifically state which African leader or set of leaders.
Let me just. I mean, there's been talk about this, and while I agree that, look, for example, a lot of attention has been paid to Ukraine. How about Somalia? How about Sudan and all of that and the things that have been happening there? You also see that maybe we've not lived up to expectation. But let me just, it talks about, it doesn't state any specific batch of leaders. But look, I have heard many African presidents, many leaders from Africa, including here in Ghana, sing the same song. So it's not a different hymn book or hymn sheet. It's the same rhetoric from Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa to President Akufo-Addo of Ghana.
Absolutely. And it is utterly preposterous to hear people say that, we need money, come help us, don't help others, helping others more than you are helping us, for a continent of great potential. This entitlement mentality of our leaders when it comes to aid, really is sickening.
It's like saying you did something to me in the past, because of that I simply cannot move on. Get along with your life already. Colonialism happened. Move on.
Yes. Very, very sickening, and especially also as colonialism did not take away all the beautiful things that the Almighty God, granted our continent. Unfortunately, poor, terrible leadership over the years have cost us some of the things that we see. I always say that it is not okay to always beat ourselves as a continent and always, chastise and say that everything about us and our continent, is wrong. However, I am also of the firm opinion that there is so much that we can be able to do for ourselves as a people, And so for me, enough of this lamenting and brooding, and for us to focus on the things that we can do to better our lots as a people.
Right. And that is how we're going to wrap the conversation. Let me just wrap with some headlines from the Business Finder. Afrexim Bank Springfield signed $750 million credit facility. I've already told you about that. It's a big boost for Ghanaian ownership of oil, the oil and gas sector. First quarter real GDP increases by 4.2%, and that is a definitely positive story. That's according to the Ghana Statistical Service. And 3 cocoa producers discuss African cocoa pricing body. Samuel Bing, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and wish you the very best of the day.
Same.
All right, thank you. Samuel Bing is with the Parliamentary Network Africa. As we wrap, I would like to wish a happy birthday to you, Mr. Isaac Kojo Abraham of the Minerals Commission. The Multimedia Group Limited would like to take this opportunity to thank you for being supportive and helpful to us. May the Almighty God give you strength, courage, and all those things you deserve in your life. Also, a happy birthday to Abigail Pabite of Gimpa and Marshmallow. We wish you the very best on this day. From me to you, have a wonderful day. Also to Anochwa Basewa, we wish you a very happy birthday. May God richly bless you in all your endeavors. To all of you, we wish you a fantastic birthday celebration. And of course, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Locate us in Spintex here in Accra, opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's also Takradi Anaji Estate, Tema Community 22. Then there is Techiman Hanswa and Esiama in Zima. If you'd like to call, which I definitely suggest you do, reach out to them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Stay with us. Sports is up next.
Good morning, it's time for sports here on the AM show. My name is Haruna Mubarak. Now, good news for Ghana Premier League champions Midiama, because the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagben, has pledged to support the club ahead of their participation in next year's CAF Champions League. Midiama will represent Ghana in the competition next season for the first time in their history. The Speaker has assured the club of assisting them with 100,000 Ghana cedis as part of their preparations for the continental showpiece.
I want to, on your behalf, commit the House to going with them all the length to the continent to ensure that they win the African Cup for Ghana. This I will proceed to enforce. Whether you say aye or no. And so when they approach the House through the Speaker, I will know the means I'll use to get the investment from you to the club to ensure that they get the necessary resources, the necessary logistical support, and the necessary motivation to surprise the continent by winning the cup. Yes, I'm a patron. And so as the patron, I'll ensure that that is done. So, Mediama LC, I want to assure you that the House is with you. and I'll proceed to pledge, which you can take up from me anytime, an amount of 100,000 Ghana cedis now to support your activities. The Honorable Deputy Minister could receive it on your behalf. And please, this is the time to celebrate. This is the time to enjoy and to refresh and to motivate and incentivize yourself for the task ahead. We are with you. Congratulations, congratulations, and congratulations. And I end with this statement. A thing of beauty is a joy forever.
Meanwhile, some members of parliament also called for proper management and investment of football clubs in the country. They also charged government to improve the country's sports facilities.
Business, football must always move in tandem. And so there's the need for the club owners to also be out there and talk about their clubs and the successes and open up and be quite transparent in terms of what comes in and how they are spent. Because that really is a challenge. And I hear a lot of them complaining bitterly this time around, knowing that it's in a way affecting the performance of those clubs. Calling on government for support is good, but they might not get everything they want from government.
Football is now a big business, and congratulations to my good friend, Mr. Parker. I watched the last African Cup of Nations Club Championship between Al Ahly and WAC of Morocco. Al Ahly won the trophy 3-2. And if you look at the quality of play, it should tell you that those countries are investing in their academies. Companies are investing in football and sports in general. That is why Morocco could get to the semi-final stage of the last World Cup. If you look at the Senegalese team, it should tell you that some old players are putting money into academies. Patrick Vieira and co, they are putting in big money. What are former national stars doing in Ghana? Everybody is saying government must contribute, government must contribute. How much can government put in football? Go to the sports village of Mamelodi Sundowns, Pirates, Chiefs, and you think you are somewhere in Europe. If you don't invest in sports, you won't get the results. Alhaji Gruza, King Faisal, one man, how much can he support King Faisal with? So we all have to go back to the drawing table and look at how football is financed and how sports is financed to be able to win the trophies that we want this country to win. Else, we'll be wearing our national team shirts, going to the stadium and coming back home with high blood pressure and disappointment.
Mr. Speaker, we've all heard about the woes of Ghana football. And ever so often we hear people saying, people must put in money. Mr. Speaker, how do you put your money? Who on this planet puts your money into a venture when you are told that officiating is problematic? Facilities are problematic. The training regime is not fit for purpose. And there's no clear route as to whether, even if you invest 10 cedis, whether you even get your 10 cedi back. So, Mr. Speaker, until we have a system where Ghana football gets these issues resolved, it is going to be difficult. It's not as if Ghanaians don't have the ability to invest in football. That is why I take the opportunity to congratulate those who have risked to invest in this venture, especially those who have invested in Mediama, as a result of which this glory is coming. But Mr. Speaker, I would encourage GFA to look at this. It is common, it may be wrong, it is common knowledge that the quality of the infrastructure in at many of the places is not fit for purpose. For instance, if you were to have a football club and the players are as good as anything, you need to be able to conduct or organize your football matches in such a way that people who are actually going to the stadium to watch the match are safe. And then 2, you'll be able to get your gate fees. But we don't have enough stadia in this country that can have that organized properly. So infrastructure is a good thing we should look at.
Away from club issues, now last night the Black Meteors arrived in Morocco for the 2023 Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations. They were initially based in Egypt, where they featured in 2 friendlies ahead of the tournament. The team will begin their campaign on Sunday, June 25, when they face Congo in their first game of the tournament. Now to some transfer news. Manchester City captain Ilkay Gundogan, he will join Barcelona in the summer, and City, they have reacted well by signing Mateo Kovacic from Chelsea as his replacement. That's how we wrap up sports here on the AM show. My name is Haruna Mubarak.
Keynote address at the 30th Annual General Meeting of the African Export and Import Bank, President Akufo-Addo said the ratings from these agencies are not in the best interest of developing countries like Ghana. He said such ratings put undue pressure on African economies.
And I can comfortably and convincingly say this. As the AU champion for African financial institutions and leader of a country which recently had to deal with one of the most difficult periods in its post-independent history. Difficulties which were exacerbated by the reckless behavior of rating agencies that engaged in pro-cyclical downgrades, shutting Ghana out of capital markets and turning a liquidity crisis into a solvency crisis. Afro-Exim Bank, under its counter-cyclical response mechanism, provided timely support to help Ghana navigate the macroeconomic management challenges worsened by Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine in an orderly manner, when suddenly we realized we were alone.
Professor Bokpin, speaking to Joy Business after the breakfast meeting, says he disagrees with these assertions by the president, explaining that these rating agencies did not kick out the country from the capital market, but instead Ghana lost it.
I understand the rating agencies. In the last 1.5 years, Ghana has suffered a number of downgrades. So to that extent, we say that yes, the president is spot on, that we have been downgraded quite seriously. But I do not agree with the president that they have been reckless with their rating, because the methodology that they use is available for everyone to see. And if you use the same methodology or even you vary it, you still come to the conclusion that the ratings have been largely fair. Right, and therefore it's very difficult to attribute bias to what they have done, because my understanding is that these same rating agencies in the time past, even under this current administration, have given us good ratings, and on the back of that we have gone to the capital markets to go and then borrow, and therefore I'm not too sure that they will just change suddenly because they are anti-government or they are reckless. But we will not say that the rating agencies kicked us out of the market. The right way to put it is that Ghana lost market access.
He maintained that Ghana's economic fundamentals are deteriorated and fiscal vulnerabilities exposed the country prior to the global shocks.
Our economic fundamentals are deteriorated. We had fiscal vulnerabilities in the run-up to the COVID and then Russia-Ukraine. So when those shocks came, given the magnitude of the shocks, it actually revealed the vulnerabilities in our economy. And therefore, the rating agencies didn't have a choice than to downgrade the country. But you look at it this way. even if we want to ignore the rating agencies, you look at what is happening in the economy. We have to do haircuts. Typically, the kind of haircut we did is really not voluntary, even though the government was saying that this is voluntary and the rest of it wasn't voluntary. And if the form of debt restructuring is not voluntary in all its spheres, then it's almost like restricted default, and that is what the rating agencies have done. So I think that we are at the point where we now need to take responsibility. We sympathize with the president. He feels the heat. We know that he's doing his possible best to get out of this situation, but I think that we also have to be realistic in terms of where we could have done better so that we all resolve to do better. I think that's the way to go. Blaming and criticizing the rating agencies to a large extent is not going to undo the past. What lies ahead of us is what measures are we going to put in place to make sure that we improve on our ratings. Just recently, Moody's improved our rating slightly because in their view, we are done with the domestic debt exchange.
He also described Ghana's method in restoring debt sustainability as unnecessary. According to him, the move will rather impose hardship on Ghanaians. He stressed on the need for government to explore diverse ways of ensuring private sector growth to support the economy.
We can cause the same. That's why I'm saying that there's a way to do a fiscal adjustment that preserves the cash flow of households and businesses. And we chose not to do that one. In fact, we could reach almost the same point in fiscal adjustment if we decided that we're going to adopt a lean government. You can even look at tax from two perspectives. Tax as an investment. So there are countries that lower their taxes as a way of promoting what? Businesses. So that when businesses grow, look, assuming we had like, if you go and check top 20 businesses in Africa, top 50 businesses in Africa, you will not find Ghana in there. If we are looking for top 20 rich Africans, Ghana is missing. If you pick, so the point that I'm making is that the method we have chosen to restore debt sustainability is going to impose unnecessary hardship. And we can avoid that. In the time past, Ghana used to be a shining example of IMF interventions, but this is where we are. To come out of this, I will look at it this way. When the IMF says that these are the broad fiscal policy frameworks that you need to have, it's then up to the government to decide on the specific interventions, strategies to achieve that. We said this way back in 2021, that we need to preempt what was coming. Assuming the president decides that I'm going to go the way of Cote d'Ivoire, I'm reducing the size of my government to, let's say, 31. We can cost the savings. That's why I'm saying that there's a way to do a fiscal adjustment that preserves the cash flow of households and businesses. And we chose not to do that one. In fact, we could reach almost the same point in fiscal adjustment if we decided that we're going to adopt a lean government and just merge about 5 to 6 ministries.
At the event, Executive Director at the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boachi, questioned the viability of Ghana's procurement processes, indicating that it's a crime against the economic growth and development of the country.
The biggest crime of our country is our procurement system, where consistently it has been reviewed and we know that corruption is so massive in our procurement system. And we have tracked it. It will be difficult for you to find any government contract above $1 million go through competitive tender in this country. It is so sourced. And not just because you go on the shelf and you can see 1 million, and government also went for it for 1 million, which you wouldn't have problem with. You will see 1 million thing on the shelf, and the government will go for it for 10 million, and it will still be so sourced. Go through the numbers. We all have to be interested. The chairs that government procure, how much do they buy them? We all go to the market. The basic things that government procure, 5 times more than what you can buy on the shelf. But we watch them happen, and then they crystallize into debt, and they have the power of the states to pass laws to tax you more, and we are watching. So we can no longer be that kind of citizens hoping to adjust in difficult times, but we need to get the government to do the heavy lifting.
Now, government says it's expected to receive about $6.2 billion from its multilateral partners between 2023 and 2026. This, it says, will help in economic growth. For Joy Business, James Shen.
Coming from the south into the Upper East Regional Capital, Bolgatanga, the drive is smooth for the most part. But then when you are about 4 kilometers away from entering the capital, the journey suddenly becomes very uncomfortable.
So for many people driving into the Upper East Regional Capital in Bolgatanga, once they get to the Bolgatanga Senior High School, the smooth ride ends there. And from that point onwards, it's a bumpy ride like this one because the road is very bad.
This is the Bolgatanga Tamale Road and the stretch from immediately after the Bolgatanga Senior High School to the Total Filling Station close to the Smith residential area. Large potholes, sometimes filled with rainwater, cover many parts of the stretch. The potholes are numerous and so scattered that at some points there is little road left for vehicles to use. Motorbikes and tricycles are often seen meandering their way to avoid running into the potholes. Occasionally, some drivers are also seen diverting into the lanes meant for those coming in the opposite direction just so they can dodge the potholes. According to some road users, vehicles frequently run into each other as a result.
You feel not safe because 2 weeks ago there was an accident over there. One soldier man died just because one driver has left his side of the road and then passed his way, and then he cleared him out and the soldier man died. He came to witness the funeral of his late father. Then he also joined his father in addition.
The road is so terrible, so bad. The middle of the road there's potholes. Every sideways you cannot even drive. Every time when they work on it, because of the big trucks that load from Tema to Upper East here to Paga, to Boku, Binduri, Puska and all those places, they all pass this road.
The number of potholes that usher visitors into the capital town of the Upper East region has left some citizens feeling embarrassed.
It's embarrassing to say the least. Every important person who is going to the regional capital, be the president, the vice president, any top national figure, have to pass through this road. We don't need to suffer this in the hands of our policymakers. I commute on this road on a daily basis, and I've seen that it has become a hell to most of us.
Since they constructed this road, they didn't work on this particular site very well, because if they even come and patch it, it won't last long. Every day you'll be riding and the community members will be patching the potholes and they will be begging for money, which is not good.
This portion of the Bolgatanga Tamale Road has been in this state for many years now. Occasionally, the potholes are filled with gravel, but it never takes too long before they return to this ugly state. In the absence of Ghana Highway Authority contractors on this road, Some young men from the surrounding communities are often seen filling the potholes in the hope that some of the road users will appreciate their efforts and throw them some pocket change.
Yeah, we are filling the potholes because you can see how people have been falling here every day, causing accident. If the road were to be good, this all will not happen. And they won't do it. They always come and do it, it won't last. So you can see we are even too close because we are tired.
Who's paying you for this?
No one.
You are just doing it.
You are just doing it. If anyone pass and you feel like what you are doing is good, you give us 1 cedi or this, we call it. Because we are not here saying that if you don't pay, you won't pass.
Now, for many of the people who use this road, the expectation is that the government will do something, patch these potholes, maybe even remove the asphalt completely. That way the road will be more trouble than it is currently, because for many people, this is not befitting of a regional capital. From the Bolgatanga-Winkongo stretch of the Bolgatanga-Tamale Road, my name is Albert Sorry, reporting for Joy News.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our first conversation and we're going to be talking about narcotics. Yes, we know them, and drug-related health issues. And joining us for that conversation this morning, we have NCO Rees Oduro. He is Deputy Greater Accra Regional Commander. He joins the conversation. A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
The Narcotics Control Commission, formerly the Narcotics Control Board. You've come a long way. I think it's only fitting that we start off the conversation on the point of what the commission does, what you do generally, and maybe we'll get into the conversation of what narcotics are for those who are watching us this morning. So tell us a bit about your commission.
Thank you. First of all, greetings to your cherished viewers, and I extend greetings to my Director General, who is currently watching us, and the Greater Accra Regional Head, and the entire team at the Greater Accra Regional Office. Narcotics Control Board formally was established by the PNDC Law 236, and it existed until 2020 May, when the commission, or the new act, that is the Narcotics Control Commission Act 2020 Act 1019, was also passed. So this new commission is a form of, it's like an enhanced powers and functions. So initially, we didn't have, for example, we didn't have the power to prosecute, but now, in consultation with the Attorney General, now we can prosecute. In the past, with the board, we couldn't carry arms, but now with the new commission, we can carry arms. So it's just an enhance of powers and functions expansion that now the commission has been given. So it's just like our job has been extended to other areas that in the past we were not going there. Yeah.
It's like the free zones now also an authority, how the changes come through. Over the years, the NACOC has been, of course, NACOP now too, NACOC has done a lot in the area of controlling narcotics and all of that. What would you say stands out since 2020 when this Act 1019 took effect? What would you say has stood out in terms of narcotics control in Ghana?
Okay, what this act, or what stands out after the passing of this new act is that now we are advocating, or we are mandated to make drug use a public health problem. In the past, it was criminalized, where you could serve a minimum of 5 years, or a maximum of 10 years. But with this new act, now, if you are caught using any of these substances, you will be fined not less than 200 penalty units and not more than 500 penalty units. unless you are unable to pay the fine, that's when you'll be sentenced to 15 months imprisonment. However, if the Act also permits us that if we find out that you are actually addicted or you are suffering from what we call substance use disorder, then you can be referred to a rehabilitation center instead of the fine or the pre-imprisonment.
We'll get into the details of that. It's a question I had slated for your appreciation because of those latest dynamics and the fact that we're trying to prevent incarcerating people and rather enforce punitive measures. But what exactly are the narcotics that the control board? There's a famous case, I just forget the title of it, where some people were apprehended. They were actually growing marijuana, and they had no idea that what they were growing or using had legal implications. It's a famous story. It's a famous legal case that comes with knowledge versus what the law says. But ordinarily, I mean, if you use any of these substances, it is assumed that you know exactly what it is and the consequences thereof follow. But what are narcotics? What, according to this act, is described as a narcotic drug?
Okay, then let me go to the interpretation since you are referring to the act. But generally, narcotics are the banned substances. They are the illegal drugs that to us has no medicinal purpose. So for any doctor or medical practitioner to prescribe. So let's go here. Narcotics, according to the act. That is section 113.
All right.
Section 113, that's where the interpretations are. So narcotics means narcotic drug or plant. The narcotic drug includes any substance specified in the 5th, 6th, and 7th schedule, whether it's a natural or a synthetic form. So the schedules too are here. We come to the 5th. Okay. I think there are many. I may not be able to list all of them, but the popular ones are cocaine, heroin. So this is the 5th schedule. That's at the back of the act. We have them: opium, codeine, thebaine, morphine, coca leaves, cocaine, methamphetamine, a lot of them. I think they are listed. A lot of chemicals are also listed in the 5th, 6th, and 7th schedule. Yeah. So basically, that is what the act is saying, that any substance specified in the 5th and 6th schedule. So to know all of them, they need to get the act so you can just see but the popular ones are cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine.
All right. It's interesting that you put all of these together, of course, all of them having their own, whether hallucinogenic or whatever effects. But a point of interest for me is codeine, which is medicinal.
Yes, it's medicinal. But
it also has its narcotics end. Please explain that.
Okay, so with codeine, what it does is, it's also from the opium poppy. That's where it's within the family of opioids or opiates. And these are drugs that are for severe pain. However, once you take these substances, they depress the central nervous system. So overdosing it or abusing it, that is when it has not been prescribed to you, it can be very, very deadly. So that makes codeine a bit delicate when we talk about it, because in one vein it is legal. However, it can only be prescribed, or it should only be prescribed by medical practitioners. But people pass behind the scenes and they manage to get these substances and they abuse them. But the adverse effects and the dangers are just like taking or abusing heroin or any of the opioids or opiates.
Mm. It can be used as an analgesic. Sometimes it is even used with aspirin. So it has its health use. But of course, even with weed, there is a medicinal component to it, where there's an industrial use for it. There is a medicinal component to it. And of course, there is the other side, which is an abuse of a drug. Does that mean that in our jurisdiction, I mean, something like tramadol, which some people mix with all kinds of other substances to create a sort of cocktail. We hear, for example, those who work in the mines, I'm not talking of the legitimate ones, the illegal miners, they often mix a lot of these. And what is the status of that? And we know some of these products are in cough mixtures and all of that. What is the status of that? How does NACOC approach such abuse or products?
Let me clarify something first. with regard to the medicinal aspect of weed. Yes, in other jurisdictions, it is there. It is widely known. Research has indicated.
Right.
But as we sit in Ghana here,
under our jurisdiction.
Yes, there is no medicinal use for cannabis or marijuana. That is legally. But when you go to other jurisdictions, there is. With tramadol and the cough mixtures that you are talking about, these are legal substances. However, some bad guys are producing them illegally, because I don't think you need more than 50 milligrams of tramadol for any pain that you are going through. But we see our brothers and sisters on the streets, sometimes you use like 500 milligrams. You just mix with any of these caffeine,
sometimes energy drinks.
Yes, and that's the danger, because these energy drinks are stimulants. They contain caffeine, which is stimulant. And tramadol being a depressant, once you mix this depressant and stimulant together, you kind of send a wrong signal or a wrong message to the brain. And it leads to a whole lot of confusion in the system, because now the brain does not know whether to send a block or a message to the body that, no, you need to be depressed because of the tramadol, or you need to be elated or stimulated because of the caffeine. So that is it. But because they are legal, what we do is, once we see people who are trading in it without license, we seize them. But when it comes to arresting people for using tramadol, that is a bit difficult. So what we do is the education, trying to let them know that even though it is legal, you are passing behind the scenes to get these substances and you are abusing them. Just know that the detrimental effects or the adverse effects await you. So that is what we do. But we don't go in as in going to clamp them down for. But however, when you know clandestine laboratories where these things are being produced, that one we can go and shut it down, because they don't have the license to produce those medications.
So if you went to any chemical shop or pharmacy and you found out, for example, that they were dispensing tramadol in milligrams or grammage that is beyond the requisite, I mean, very high, what would be the response?
That would be difficult to tell or to say, because it's the work of the doctor and the pharmacist to know the prescribed dosage or milligram that is recommended or required by a person. So me just walking into a pharmacy or a chemical shop will find it difficult to establish the fact that what you are giving to this person is an overdose, unless I'm coming from the medical field. However, no certified pharmacist will give you tramadol that is beyond the milligram, the required milligram for you. So I don't think, there might be bad guys out there, but no certified or responsible pharmacist will prescribe or will give you such medication, such dosage.
Mm. Let's extend this a little more, because my research shows that in Ghana, when it comes to these drugs, hard substances that are abused, the number one drug is marijuana. And I've also found out that we often don't pay attention to street children, the street urchins, but they're also in the mix. I was reading one research piece that was conducted in both Ghana and South Africa, and how it showed that in both places, especially here, a lot of these street children were, of course, some of them are there through no fault of theirs, they should be in school, were abusing the drug. What is the status? I mean, is that something you would corroborate, the status of drug use in Ghana? Is marijuana number one on our list? How has NACOC approached it? Also in respect of street children.
Okay, thank you. When we talk of marijuana, it's not only a problem for Ghana, because when you read the 2022 World Drug Report, it states that marijuana continues to be the drug of concern for the entire African continent. So Ghana, your research wasn't wrong, is the most abused illegal substance in Ghana. And according to studies by Juan Brown Akwe, he said that the initial use for marijuana is between 10 to 12 years. So the age that you are also talking about, street children, is also right. Because when we look at the first time, what the experimental age,
the initial,
yes, for marijuana is that very low, between 10 to 12 years. Because when we go out for our educational programs, we interact with some of these upper primary JHS, and to our amusement, like, they already know the substance. So it's out there, it's widely available in the country. So now what we are doing is we have intensified our prevention. Because prevention aims at stopping or at least delaying the initial use of these substances. So now we go to communities, schools, churches, just to engage people, to let them know. Because mostly when you interact with these people who are suffering from substance use disorder, what they usually say is, I didn't know, had I known. So we realize that, okay, it's the information deficiency that actually leads, because the one who is selling is just interested in the money that he's going to make. So any way or means that he will do to get you into the substance, they go about. So we've intensified our education just to let people know, because when we sit in our offices, it's hard to determine that maybe behind this building someone is abusing marijuana, since it's not something that is coming outside into the country, but it's already in the system. So we believe that through media engagement like we are doing and other sensitization programs, we can reach out to the masses and let them know the effects of these substances, especially marijuana, as you mentioned.
Interesting point you make, but let's talk about methamphetamine. It's not that common to find, but it also requires, there are specialized processes to produce it. If we find it here, then it either means it was brought in through unrecognized channels, or we have the expertise here. People are illegally producing that. What is the status of that product, its use in Ghana? How common is it? And have you had to, for example, hit any places where they were being produced and confiscate anything?
What we usually have, or what I'm aware of, is seizing at the airports and at the entry points at the borders. Because just by our neighbors in Nigeria, I think they had more than, in India, that's the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency, destroyed more than 126 clandestine labs. I think in 2016, I'm not sure of the year. So this tells us that if Nigeria is producing, then definitely it will be in Ghana, because they are with us. They are our brothers and sisters. We are with them. So the use, it's not that common as you said. It's hard to see people abuse it. But what we know is the trafficking, because it's hot cake when it gets to the Southeast Asia and other part of Asia. So what we normally experience is the trafficking bit of methamphetamine that is trying to conceal it through our airport or borders. That is what I'm aware of. But when it comes to the use, well, I will not say nobody in Ghana is using it, but I'm yet to, because when we go for our sensitization programs, that particular substance hardly comes up. So I'm yet to encounter anybody who is using it. But I know people are trafficking it, and there are people we've been arresting and seizing, destroying as part of our, when we go for our drug distractions.
When you look at the charts that I have seen in terms of drug use, you would see heroin in there, you would see cocaine in there, you would see opium, which can also be in liquid form, the opioids and all of that. Tell us a bit more about their presence, their use in our borders. What do you know so far? I mean, there are times when we've heard of those confiscations, slabs confiscated at the airport, at different ports and all of that. But what is the status?
Yeah, initially in the past, if you had asked me this question like 10 years ago, I would have said Ghana is a transit hub.
I recall.
Yes.
We had our own problems.
In the past, yes. Right. In the past, cocaine, heroin was not an issue here. It was just a transiting hub that people used this place just to get to Europe and America. But now, there is a growing market, especially for cocaine and heroin. And when you go to the ghettos, people are now abusing these substances.
Are we talking of crack cocaine?
Crack cocaine is there, yeah.
Crack cocaine?
Yeah. So where I was going is that it's not the sad thing is they bring the drug into the country for trafficking to move to the next state. So during the packing, definitely there will be base, there will be leftovers. So it's these leftovers that they gather, and they add something like sodium bicarbonate that's cocaine base to it, and they get a crack cocaine. That is why it is very addictive, very dangerous, and the high does not even last. So you need to go in for more. That is the cocaine. Same with heroin. Heroin is also targeting America, because that's where the market is. So what they do is, whilst sometimes you come here and you realize that the borders are tight. So will you stay for your heroin to go with? No. So they then float them into our black market, into our ghettos. And people, that's what they call brown. They usually call it brown or Thai. That's for heroin. And crack, that is rock or cocaine. That's what they call in the ghetto. So we know they are both there, and people are even actually mixing them.
Wow.
They mix cocaine with heroin. They call those ones speedball.
I mean, there are so many names for it.
Yes, speedball, and it's deadly, just like the tramadol and energy drink example. Because cocaine is also a stimulant that is stimulating the central nervous system. Heroin is a depressant. So when you mix these two, it can be deadly, and overdose can kill you instantly.
There's something we often don't talk about, though. In the context of drug abuse, alcohol is also considered a drug. In that context, it is considered a drug, a central nervous system depressant. When it comes to alcohol abuse, do you also wade into that? What categories do you
So when it comes to alcohol, what we do is, as I said, is education. Because this is a legal substance that people have or feel they have the right to use. So when you tell them don't use alcohol, it's like what the theorists will say, that's the theory of psychological reactance. Once people feel that their freedom is being interfered with, they are likely to bounce back. So it's like we go in with the education, with the information that this is what alcohol is going to do for you, going to do to you. So if you feel like using alcohol, what we preach is more or less moderation. As you said, abuse. You don't abuse it, but rather moderate it. Because binge drinking, study will tell that binge drinking can kill you instantly. And there were videos that circulated on our social media.
You can lose consciousness and be...
Yes, social media some time ago where I don't know whether it was a competition. One guy just took a whole bottle of a drink I wouldn't want to mention, and instantly he passed out. He collapsed. The video was cut short, but he collapsed and they were shouting. So that is the effect of binge drinking. So what we do with alcohol is we kind of educate, give you the realities. However, I also say that the FDA is doing well because it falls within their jurisdiction. If you realize in some few years now, they've made some policies where celebrities cannot even advertise for alcohol. Right. You can also do advertisement of alcohol during daytime. I think it starts from 8 p.m.
Certain late hours. Yes.
And now they've also been instructed to write on the bottle, not recommended for children under 18 years and pregnant women. So these are policies that...
We also see the ones on tobacco-related products.
That is it. So because when the thing is legal, it becomes difficult when you want to go in hard. So all you can do is give them the information, tell them the truth, don't exaggerate, don't lie to them, let them know the reality that if you consume or if you abuse alcohol, you can get hepatitis C, you can get cirrhosis. Let the person know.
I know about liver cirrhosis, but hepatitis C?
Yes.
Really?
Alcohol abuse can lead to that, yes.
Alcohol abuse can let you get hepatitis C.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I've learned something. That means the more you abuse alcohol, first, I don't know, fatty liver, there's fatty liver issues, liver cirrhosis, and now hepatitis C. So you probably want to watch it. There are two quick things I want us to look at before we get into the consequences of the abuse of all of these drugs that you've been making mention of, just for sensitization purposes. But there are legitimate drugs, like the tramadol, that sometimes are also abused. The opioids, for example, can be used for pain medication, like you said, in other jurisdictions. Here, what does the law, Act 1019, say? Is there any different approach to it? I know you've spoken about tramadol, but is there any different approach? Because they are legitimate. Since you're talking about legitimate things like alcohol and how it's controlled, what is the control mechanism there?
Without, or apart from heroin, morphine, opium, substances like pethidine, tramadol, and other methadone and other opioids are legal in the country.
Codeine is also...
Yes, they are legal. However, if you want to produce some of these substances, we have some chemicals we call precursor chemicals that you need to import. And mostly these industries and pharmaceutical companies bring most of these precursors. So what we do at our end is that our act mandates us to register and give you the license to import the precursor. So we monitor the quantity you are bringing, how they are being used, and when they get finished, and you need to bring in more. So that is because without these precursors, you cannot actually produce most of these medicines or medications, including the illegal drugs like cocaine and heroin. So we monitor and control these ones. But apart from monitoring and controlling precursor, when it comes to the legal opioids, they are just as legal as any other medication or drug on the counter or in the pharmacy.
All right, let's take a quick look at this, and then we can look at the consequences of the abuse. There's also hashish or shisha, and it's flavored and so many substances are added. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not illegal? And why are people so able to use them so openly, so freely? You go to many pubs and places, and they are there.
Yeah.
And it's a health hazard, because I've heard that if you smoke one jar or whatever, it's like smoking, is it 1,000 cigarettes or something of the sort? But what is the reality of that? Quickly.
Okay, I think you put two substances together.
Okay.
Hashish is totally different from shisha.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hashish is the resin gotten from the cannabis plant. That's a form of marijuana. Marijuana is usually the dry leaves that they smoke. That's marijuana. But when they pound and grind the leaves into a paste, extract whatever from, then we get the hashish. And we even have the hashish oil, where you can also extract oils after the taking it into process, heating and stuff. You get the oil from the cannabis, and that's the hashish oil. So hashish and hashish oil are banned substances. For them, they are specified in the schedule. They are. You can't even go there. They are derivatives of cannabis, and they are banned, just like the whole plant is banned in the country. However, shisha comes from tobacco. It's a tobacco-based substance that people in the past, people added flavors to it and were using it. It's actually kind of an Arabian culture. And we know how these Arabians are affluent, they are rich. So now shisha, we are adopting that style, that lifestyle of these Arabians. Like, it makes you feel kind of being up there. That's how come you see young people, even now ladies who in the past would have gone closer to cigarettes, now feel proud to say they smoke shisha. Because shisha is kind of, you've attached certain status to shisha. When you sit in the lounge,
it's become a status.
If you look at the names, they give it shisha lounge. So it's like, yeah, you can actually walk in a cool place with AC, sit in a luxurious chair, and just be puffing or inhaling that substance. As you said, sitting in a sitting, if you consume or if you smoke one one round of shisha, it's like smoking about 8 sticks of the normal cigarettes that people do smoke. And the effect is that the study will tell you that tobacco kills more than 8 million of its users every year. And let me send this warning to also the secondary users. Out of these 8 million, 1.2 million are secondary users. Oh, me, I don't smoke. I was with my boyfriend and he was smoking.
Passive smokers.
Passive smokers. Right. The study will let you know that aside the 8 million that die every year, 1.2 million are from passive, or they are passive smokers. So it's not.
It's even worse to be a passive smoker.
That is the point. So it's not about now you enjoy the luxury, the coolness of the substance, but the effects await you. It's just like smoking cigarettes.
Okay, so let's.
But now let me add this one. The danger is they are now even adding marijuana to it. So now instead of the tobacco base or the tobacco thing that shisha is made up of, now it's marijuana base. People are now putting in marijuana, and that one, if we get you, the law will deal with you because it's illegal. Marijuana is illegal. So once you put.
So even if you are not aware and you're there and you are smoking it or whatever, and you are caught.
Once we're able to establish it's marijuana, you can't be picked up.
All right. So in the next 2 minutes or so, as we wrap the conversation, let's look at the consequences of abusing all of these, what we should be aware of, and again, if, like you said, if you're caught with any of these items, what the consequences are. You started by talking about 200 penalty units, especially for weed and other products, and that's the minimum. The maximum is 500 penalty points. And if you're unable to pay the fine, then a jail term will be served you. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so what I was giving it was in regard to in relation to use. However, if you are caught possessing for trafficking, for trade, for any other means, maybe an enterprise, the law says that a minimum of 10,000 penalty units and a maximum of 25,000 penalty units. In addition to minimum of 10 years to 25 years imprisonment. If you're unable to pay the fine, then 3 years will be added. That one lies with the court. So that is when you are caught possessing, importing trying to sell, cultivating. Cultivating also has its own punishment. That is for marijuana. When it comes to the other consequences of using these substances, aside the ill health that we've mentioned, like you stand a chance of getting lung cancer, kidney issues, liver issues, there are the effects of substance use disorder, which is a bit, people are not really aware of that. That addiction is actually a disease. It's a complex brain disease that is characterized by relapse and it leads to a person's inability to control their use of substance, despite the effect. He or she knows that me using this substance...
It's become an addiction, yes, so they find it difficult.
But people don't really consider it as a disease. It's a mental health issue. It's a disease that is there. And people are more or less, it's normal. This is a moral or some kind of a moral issue and not a disease. So that is the danger. We have other effects like injuries, accidents resulting from risky behaviors when you are intoxicated. We see people drink or smoke, jumping buildings, crossing the street anyhow, engaging in tug fight and tug wars when they are intoxicated. These are some of the dangers. The violent aspect, we have effects like if you are a young person, you dropping out of school. Because studies show that young people who engage or start using these substances are likely to drop out of school. And you lose your future ambition. So these are some of the consequences for using these substances.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning for this conversation. It's been enlightening, and we're hoping that with the work you're doing, less and less people will be exposed to these elements, because sometimes it gets really difficult, especially when you start as a child. When you're exposed to it, then it becomes really difficult breaking the habit. But we're grateful you've taken the time this morning to come and educate us live on Joy News. We've had joining us for the conversation NCO Rees Oduro. He is Deputy Greater Accra Regional Commander. He joined us for this conversation. One more time, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Stay with us, because up next we're going to be hosting the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram. Recently, he got the nod from his constituency to contest on the NDC's ticket. Well, we'll be getting into a number of salient issues bordering on our national life. Everything that you can think of. Well, probably not everything, but the most salient matters. That conversation up next on the AM show. Do stay. Welcome back on the AM show. Even before we get into our next conversation, something that skipped my mind, I have to run it by you. So don't drug your dreams away. On the back of the last conversation we have, don't drug your dreams away. That's what NACOC is putting forth. And World Drugs Day is Monday. Guess what? They have an event at the Alisa Hotel here in Accra at 9 a.m. They have a Durbar, so make it a point to follow, join them, and let's all stay drug-free. Don't drug your dreams away. But let's get into the substantive conversation now. We host a two-term Member of Parliament, am I correct? And he recently got the nod from his constituency one more time. Not as close as we would have thought. He is the lawmaker for Ningo Pram. I'm sure now a lot of you know exactly whom I'm talking about. His alias is Jata. I don't know whether it's Jata Cement or... Sam George, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
I know it's not been easy getting here this morning. Mantaya, but we're grateful that you've made the time to join us.
Mantaya. That reminds me of some of the cabaying on Tech Campus, you know, when the students are praying and they are groaning in the spirit and the hand is on the ear. Haya, haya, mantaya, mantaya.
Are you serious right now? No, I didn't see that coming. Hey! You used to hear them say that, mantaya, mantaya.
At times the tongues, you blow the tongues for like 1 hour. Haya, 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 mantaya, mantaya. Anyway, it's good to be here.
I'm sure you've not seen that at the Parents' Dome, though, where you go to church. You've not seen that one there.
Our intercessors are really solid.
Them day for me.
If you pray with the Archbishop you can pray for 14 hours non-stop. So the man is a prayer machine.
I see. This man tire bit. I mean, I've had cause, Christian though I am, I've had cause to, back then on campus, speak to a few people because right outside your window and they would be blaring, Charlie, you've gone to Shaka, you want to sleep a bit. And it wasn't easy, but we've been through all of that. Some would even classify you as a demon because you want to get some rest. But since we've started on that note of faith, I'm going to box you into a little corner. You're a deacon, right?
An elder.
An elder in your church. How did you react when recently the whole Nogokpo thing came up and the challenge was thrown to your archbishop that, hey, you have an ultimatum, show up. I engaged Reverend Professor Frimpong Manso, not Frimpong Boateng, Frimpong Manso, on that matter. And he had his own interesting thoughts from the religious perspective and also the perspective of knowing when to say what, and also the perspective of if you meet someone who doesn't err and 1 out of, let's say, 1,000 times, you find you have to know how to balance issues. What is your personal take? I mean, when your pastor, the founder of your church, was being bashed left, right, and center?
I've stayed away from commenting on this matter, and I think I still want to do. I just want to say that I was in church that day because I attended the Supernatural Empowerment Summit, which was an extremely successful summit where the power of God was made manifest. I urge people to know that every communication is in a context. This conversation we're having is in a context. If you take it out of context, you can spin it in 1,000 ways. People have watched a video that is less than about 3 minutes and drawn their conclusions. That whole sequence in the sermon was about 15 minutes.
Well, that's the danger of social media. People often have very limited information to play with.
But that's the point. You don't draw conclusions and run riot on the basis of limited information, else you come across as being shallow. Okay, I hold the view that the Archbishop made the comments he made in context. He came back subsequently to clarify. People seem to have moved away and moved on. People fail to realize the fact that the other side issued threats and gave deadlines which have passed. I have respect for everybody's belief, but I am a firm believer in the efficacy and power in the blood of Jesus Christ. And I know that even those who practice traditional beliefs know that for all the deities, there is a supreme being. And that supreme being, you see, when people say that the white man brought us a God that we worship as Christians, I say to them that they are very oblivious of our culture. There's a difference between culture and idolatry. When you take Akan or Ga, in all of our languages, we've got names, even in Ewe, we've got names for the various deities. And we've got a name for the supreme being. In Ga, Gadan, we call him Atananyumo. In Akan, he is called Odumankuma Nyankupong. In Ewe, he is called Mauga Sobolisa or something.
Sobolisa, yeah.
Yes. He's a supreme being. And all of these lesser deities are under him. The God we as Christians call is Yahweh. That's his Hebrew name. YHWH is his tetragrammaton name. It is that same God our ancestors called Atananyumo. So the white man didn't bring us a new God. We have chosen to serve the supreme being. And for me, be it in the cosmic realm or wherever anybody wants to go, ultimately, he who manifests in three beings as Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit is ultimate. And all powers and all tongues will bow and kneel before him. And so long as we call upon his name is a strong tower, the righteous will run into it and they'll be safe. No power, no weapon fashioned against us will prosper.
Well, thank you for laying the basis for the conversation from that angle. I mean, I didn't mean to go there, honestly. But since you started on the bit of the... No. I'm not being mischievous. Can you do it for me again?
Oh, no, I won't.
Just.
Before it becomes a trending video.
No, what you've done already. This one, what you're going to add will not make any difference.
Charlie, Mantaya.
Sometimes you must just laugh a bit. Laugh it off.
That is actually what has kept us together as a country. And that's what I would say to everyone who's taking this thing very personal. And I've seen people try to make it about a region and an ethnic group and all of that. Look, what has kept us as a country is our ability to look each other in the face and laugh at each other.
Yeah.
There are things that are said about us as Ghanaians. When you say that look, recently people tagged me on social media. A lady had gone on social media and said there's no successful Ghanaian man because Ghanaians are lazy. Why should I respond to such a person? And even in that video, people said, but Sam George is a Gandangme. And so, at MPs there, you always need someone from the place. So that's why that's not success. That's the person's opinion.
So they've not seen the Daniel Macaulay's and all these people in there.
Am I lazy? Am I unsuccessful? If I am not what has been put out, why do I even waste my time about it? There are things that are said about Fantis, things that are said about Ashantis, things that are said about Kwewus, things that are said about Northerners, Inzimas. Look, everybody there's something we say about everybody.
Stereotype, negative
And
stereotype.
we all laugh about it.
Yeah.
You get it? It is that has allowed us to go on and we make light of very serious issues in our country. It's the reason why we've survived. And I think that we should not lose sight of it. I mean, people are free to complain and vent their spleen, but there is a limit to it. You know, there's a limit to which you take it. If everybody wants to become rigid, we would lose what makes us the beauty of our country. The beauty. South Africa calls themselves the Rainbow Nation because of the multiple colors and ethnicities. We are a Kente nation. If you look at the Kente cloth in its beauty, it is the intermix and that mix.
That interweaving of different yarns and strands.
That makes it one solid piece. And that's the various ethnic groups of Ghana that come together to give us our unique identity. Let's not break it. It's important we don't break it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a completely different conversation on national cohesion, but I think that we just need to be careful because we're beginning to build setting walls and barriers. This is a no-go area for you if you are not. We can say it to ourselves. You can't say it to us. I mean, Charlie, when Gans also say, don't crack this joke about us, okay, if you do it, we are sacking you from our land. Well, I mean, I go around places. I go to buy, the other day in East Legon, I stopped to buy coconut. And I said, Charlie, and then the coconut seller replied to me, Samu kasano minte. Do I also go leave it and say you are on my land and you're referring to my language as Samu Kasano? Yesterday there was a video of a man being arrested by the police. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've not.
And the police were speaking to him in Twi. He was holding a machete. He was speaking in a language I hear is Grushi. That's what he speaks. And he didn't understand what the police were saying. The police didn't understand him. And thankfully, the police were able to disarm him and arrest him. But the fact of the matter is, must everybody speak Twi?
Definitely not.
The fact that I don't speak Twi doesn't mean I'm not Ghanaian. In fact, the Constitution says in Article 14.2 that if an arresting officer must speak
in the language
that the person understands.
Exactly.
You understand it? But we've come to that place where it's almost been accepted. Everywhere you go, people speak to you. Even in government offices, they speak to you in Twi.
But let's also say this from the legal standpoint. If you're trying to conduct an arrest and you cannot speak a language that the person, I mean, you would have wanted to come in with someone who can speak the language, but in circumstances beyond your control, like in this instance. I mean, if you see the police and you see that they are signaling, so where linguistic barriers,
sign language, maybe to put down or something, you cannot say that you don't comprehend when you are being signaled to maybe drop a machete. But I understand that basis, that purported everybody must
undercurrent that everyone must speak a certain that is problematic. Very interesting way we've started the conversation. But let's now talk about the state of the nation, Ghana's economy, and where it is currently. We've got our IMF deal. We've got the first tranche. The CD has not exactly been stable, but there are some gains we've made in terms of real GDP increments. The Ghana Statistical Service reports today, for example, for the first quarter, it has increased by 4.2%. The balance on our books for what we have to do as a country has also stabilized a bit more. Inflation saw a little uptick of about 1 percentage point in May from April, which is not what we would have wanted. But now we are producing more oil, for example. It's increased by a number of thousands, tens of thousands of barrels. Let me just get the figure, 40,000 barrel increments. So the Jubilee field, which was producing about 85,000, is now going to produce about 100,000 and more. It has the capacity of hitting 120,000. But when you look at the dynamics, the reality of the Ghana man, so to speak, what do you see?
You know, we've always said that Ghanaians are magicians because you wonder how Ghanaians survive. If you ask me how I survive, I can't tell, giving the reality, and I'm sure same will apply to you. When you look at what your outlay is and what you do in a month, and you look at what your take-home is, you ask yourself, how am I able to pull this off?
It gets worse when you're on a bank facility. Absolutely. Around this time.
Absolutely.
It's a killer.
Many young people have taken mortgages to own homes, and you have to pay, and these mortgages are dollar denominated, and it's killing people. So look, the reality is we are in dire straits. And you see, when I see some of these figures that say that our balance is looking good, our balance is looking better, you know, they say statistics is like a bikini. It reveals a lot, but it also hides critical details.
I've never heard that before. You're saying things this morning, though. Statistics.
It's like a bikini. It reveals a lot. When a woman is wearing a bikini, it shows you a lot, but it conceals very critical
details
and details. Yeah, because what this statistics is telling you is that our balance of payments are looking good, but it's not telling you that it's because we're not servicing existing loan arrangements that we have. We haven't serviced any of them since November last year. And so when you're not paying your creditors, but those debts have not been written off, those debts are sitting there and waiting for our children to come and pay, you cannot be patting yourself on the back and saying we're doing good. I mean, I was at the send-off of the Indian High Commissioner last Friday, and the special guest was our finance minister. And I cringed in my chair when he gave his speech, and he was thanking India and celebrating the fact that when the IMF board chair dropped the gavel to announce that Ghana had been giving the 3 billion loan agreement, the room burst into applause, and that shows Ghana's goodwill. And I asked myself, why is this man still our finance minister? He's proudly telling us that the room celebrated us going to get a loan after we had been begging for it for almost 8 months. I mean, how pathetic can you be to be the guy running our finances? That what you're celebrating is akin to the watch party he threw 5 years ago. Telling us that it is a thing of pride that people were clapping for Ghana, that after 8 months of going around and begging everybody who is anybody in this world, from the Paris Club to China, to get a loan, to qualify for a loan, we finally qualified for the loan. You're so broke, you don't qualify on your own strength to go and borrow. But you have to beg someone to beg for you to beg to be begged and you get to be borrowed. I mean, that's the real situation. Rotation nurses. And you say, what's it for the ordinary Ghana man? Rotation nurses. And I speak about it because I have one living in my house. They're finishing their rotation, which is their national service. These are nursing trainees. They're finishing their national service this month. You know, they haven't been paid 1 month, even 1 month of their NSS allowance.
Out of the regular 10 months
out of the 11 months they're supposed to work. This is the 11th month.
Wow.
They have not been paid 1 cedi. So ask yourself, how have these young people, some of them have no family in Accra, were posted to Accra. how have they survived in Accra?
Remind me, there was supposed to be an increment to this at some
Yes,
point.
I think to 799 from 599.
Right, from 500 to 700 and something. Has that happened though?
How would it happen when you've not received to know whether, on paper, yes, there's been an increase, but they have not received 1 month. They are ending. So for an ordinary young Ghanaian nursing trainee, that is the picture of Ghana. They most likely have borrowed. And look, their executives, the national executives came to meet me in Parliament 3 months ago to make a statement on the floor of the House for them. And they said to me that, look, they are being forced to offer sexual favors. They are being harassed by landlords because they owe. Some of them have to offer their bodies to be able to buy food because they are serving this country. So if you see a glut of Ghanaian health workers running away from the country to the UK and to Canada, look at what's happening to our rotation nurses. That's ordinary Ghanaians. The ordinary teacher.
But let me be quick to also point to the fact that while the second scenario you painted about women having to offer their bodies to do X, Y,
not just women, even men.
Just to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. And it's a horrible situation. And I have known people personally from different facets who have had to do that. Some people, sometimes you have to bend over backwards to help. But I'm also saying that while we chastise this government, it's not new. There are times when under your administration, the erstwhile administration, some people also did not get their stipends. Students abroad did not get what was due them. I remember when I was in Cuba at the time, when the NDC was in power, there were times when we did not get our stipends. I mean, that can be really frustrating. Obi Mainso and going through that. It's happened over time. It's not a rarity.
I would be the last person to sit here and posit that it never happened under the NDC. But that's the two things I'll say. But that's the reason why the NDC was voted out, because this was supposed to be a better alternative. True?
Right.
People voted the NDC out because we weren't seen as good enough, and Nanado was a better alternative. But let me tell you, at no point in time under the NDC did anybody have to go their whole national service and not get paid. At no point in time. At least you would have gotten 3 months, 4 months, there'll be some arrears. As you speak about, when you were in Cuba, and many other people who have been beneficiaries of government support for external education, would all tell you, every government, be it the Rawlings administration, be it the Kufuor administration, the Mills or the Mahama administration, have always been in some arrears. 3 months, 6 months. As we speak, this government is owing people over a year of stipends. So what we're talking about is not that, we're not saying there should be no arrears, because that would be unfair to say, because every government has a certain level of arrears. It is the magnitude of the problem. At no point in time have Ghanaian students outside the country been owed the length of time that they are being owed now. That's the reality. That's the issue. You see, if someone owes you 3 months and somebody owes you 9 months or 10 months, they can't be the same. Yes, both owe you, but one is better than the other.
Right.
And so that's the challenge we're talking about. That's the issue that we're talking about. And it is these challenges that, and you see, for me, a sister TV station put out a tweet, and government spokespersons went berserk. They said, take your salary today, convert it to dollar, and compare it to your salary in 2016. If your salary in 2016 was 2,000 cedis, in 2016 was 2,000 cedis, and let me even assume in a very unlikely situation that your salary has doubled, and now it's 4,000 cedis. In 2000, the dollar was changing. In 2016, the dollar was changing for 4.1, between 4 and 4.1 when we handed over. So your 2,000 Ghana cedis at 4 was $500. Now, I'm not comparing your salary as fixed though. I am assuming that your salary has doubled to 4,000. Today, the dollar is 12. 4,000 by 12. I want to get a decimals. 4,000
a factor of 3
divided by 12.
A factor of 3.
With your salary doubled, Your salary is now worth $333.33. So you have already lost almost, give or take, almost 40% of the real value of your salary. Now, this is without considering inflation, which was at about between 9 and 11% in 2016, and today is at 42%. So you realize that if I was to use your salary as a fixed figure of 2,000 today, your salary is actually worth less than $170. It's about $165 compared to $500 in 2016. So if you want to see the real state of the Ghana man, it's not about what Sam George comes to say. It's not about macroeconomic indicators. And we don't take, I always say, look, we don't take macroeconomic indicators to the market.
Right.
When you go to the market, you pay cash. You don't pay macroeconomic indicators. And so for me, and that's why I feel that people in public office must have a conscience. We must have a conscience. And if Bawumia's conscience was not seared with hot iron, he wouldn't even have picked forms to contest. Because this is a man who was sold to us as the economic messiah, as a whiskey. In fact, that is how he was sold and outdoored by the flag bearer Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in 2016. This was a man who gave us lectures and set questions for his predecessor, who was the vice president at the time and head of economic management team. Today, this is the state of our economy. And every time I watch that video of he making fun of himself, and you saw Alan Chemanting and Osafo Mafuenko and Professor Boateng, George, laughing at him. When at Pentecost International Worship Center, I said, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But if you see an exchange rate that has weakened now, you cannot say that is the fundamentals. And everybody burst into laughter, including himself, and he was laughing at himself. It tells you the state of the economy. When you see Ken Ofori-Atta and Mahmoud Bawumia as the two people running our economy, it explains to you the mess that we are in. But when public officers do not have a conscience and cannot stand up and own the fact that they have failed the people they serve, we're saddled with this problem. So I'm not the one going to tell you that we are in a mess. Just look at it. Like President Kufuor said in 2000, she was sitting in.
But let me ask you, though. Let me ask you, though. In the midst of all of this, the NDC is supposed to be bringing hope to the people of Ghana. The question that begs is, what is your alternative? You know why? We elected this administration to bring us hope, change. That has not come. In the course of the Fourth Republic, we've been embarking on that same hopeful exercise every 4 years. We seem not to be finding hope. So what exactly then is the alternative? Because we shouldn't have an alternative for alternative's sake. We need real solutions to our problems.
Absolutely.
Very quickly, I want us to get into the bit about the ratings agencies. What then is the alternative? What can you do differently? In fact, there are those who have proffered that with where our economy is now, even if your administration comes to power in 2024, you have a migraine to deal with, and that you likely wouldn't fare any better.
Let me be brutally frank, and many people may not, even within my party, may not like what I'm about to say, but John Mahama is not a magician. He doesn't have a magic wand that, God willing, in 2025, when he's sworn in as the next president of Ghana, he will wave and everything will just change. The mess is endemic. The systemic mess is deep. And so when you say we have a migraine to deal with, absolutely. But what John Mahama has is a fantastic opportunity to go down in the annals of our history as the man who hit the reset button for this country. And that is going to be on him as president, because he's not going to be saddled with thinking of a next election. He's coming in to serve one term. His focus must be on fixing and resetting our country and taking the tough decisions that this government is unable to take and focusing on resetting Ghana for the next generation. So you're going to need a president who's going to come in, and that president, I believe, is John Mahama, who's learned from his own mistakes. And don't get it wrong, the first John Mahama administration between 2013 and 2016 did make mistakes. He's had the benefit of 8 years to sit back, learn from those mistakes, come back and take the right decisions. But you see, when you ask what our alternative is, I'm not going to take the wind out of John Mahama's sail because he's going to be speaking, having a number of policy dialogues. The manifesto will come out and he will speak to all of those. But you should bear in mind that if you look at the trajectory of this government, almost everything that has gone wrong was predicted by the minority. We advised them on e-levy. We said the e-levy wasn't going to achieve what they were going to do. It was just going to saddle us with bigger problems. We've come there. We asked them to go to the IMF. They came and rang, they danced all over the place and said they would not go to the IMF. There was no way we would go to the IMF. Here we are. If we had gone to the IMF 8 months earlier, we wouldn't have had this mess we're in. When they spoke about excess capacity and all, we warned them. We said to them, look, be careful what you're talking about because you can't say there is excess capacity. Today, here we are. They are unable to, after collecting ESLA and even extending ESLA and renegotiating the AXA and Ameri deals, look at the mess we're in. So everything that has gone wrong with this government, the minority has sounded it off and warned them. I would also remain a critical voice. And I believe that there are many people, because you see, many of us are not going to sit back and allow the next Mahama administration come and do business as usual. No, that's not going to happen.
In other words, should your party win,
when my party wins,
if your party wins, you are going to push to ensure that the right things are done. Isn't that rather? I'm sorry, the word that is coming may offend you, so I'll not use it. But is that not rather
patronizing?
Yes, because we know that the power doesn't lie in your bosom. Many have said that. And so in the end, those at the very top make decisions that sometimes are unpopular with even you, the members of parliament. And there's nothing you can do.
No, but we need to come to a place where we begin to speak up. Whether it's your party in power or not your party in power. Because ultimately it is Ghana that needs to be saved. We need to begin to call ourselves out. Whether it's your party or the opposition. Look,
you do that and you are whipped in Parliament.
Well, you will be whipped if you want to be whipped. Why? Sitting here today, it's not my leadership that scheduled me to come here.
There are times when they do. There
are times when the leadership of the party would. But do you know Sam George to be one who doesn't speak his mind when he wants to speak his mind?
Anyway. So important points.
You see, people forget that even when Mahama was in government in 2015 to between 2013 and 2017, I was always speaking my mind. Maybe at that time, people hadn't taken notice about Sam George. I'll give you a typical example. I sat in this studio in 2015 when President Mahama attended the State of the Nation's address in his Toyota Avalon, and ministers of state came in their Land Cruiser using state fuel. I sat in the studios of Joy FM and blasted ministers of state. At that time, I was a presidential staffer. Because you see, my brother, if we do not come to a place where we begin to call out what is wrong as wrong, irrespective of which party, we will all this country will sink. Now that the prices have gone up, when the dollar reached 16 at a certain point in time, Chief, was there a special place for MPs? Today, when I do the groceries for my house, I know how much I used to spend on groceries 3 years ago for a week in the house, and I know how much I spend now. When I go there, I don't flash my parliamentary ID card and get a special rebate. It's the same way nobody in government today, the MPP spokespersons who are running from TV station to TV station defending the government, when they go to the market, they pay the same price.
Point made. So that is something we must learn
we must call
out.
Straight. Yeah.
Right. Let's lump up these matters. We have limited time, but I want you to look at the NDC's inner wranglings. Muntaka Mubarak, your member of parliament for Asanwasi, and what he's been saying about how he was targeted, first of all, in terms of losing his position as the chief whip of the minority, and then in contesting Asanwasi one more time, and the inner machinations. And he says he's forgotten, but he's not forgiven. And the Jachi, Quayson, and Kaselato Forsen saga. I want you to lump those together for me. Then we can take a quick swipe, if you like, at the ratings agencies and what President Akufo-Addo said. I think it's Professor Lord Mentor who made mention of the fact that the president was only upset because with those credits ratings, we couldn't go and borrow. But any quick takes on these matters?
Okay, so first and foremost, power and leadership is transient. Nobody was born for a particular position. I have enormous respect for the Honorable Muntaka Mubarak, but I believe that it's time for us to move on. Not everybody was happy with the way the transition happened and all the drama around it. We all had our demons that we had to fight in our constituencies to emerge. The beauty of it is God has given us victory. We're moving on. I mean, some of these things are things that we need to move on. And I urge everyone that feels slighted or feels pained to let it go and let's move on. And to Monsignor Muntaka, I know that he loves the party, and I know that he's going to come around and champion our cause in the Ashanti region.
Jachi Quayson.
To the Jachi Quayson case, it is just an embarrassing spectacle of how low this government has sunk, that they're focused on Jachi Quayson and are so blatantly abusing power and incumbency and trying to carry the judiciary along. Look.
Do you remember the case of Adamu Sakande?
They're completely different issues.
Tell me.
Jachi Quayson, at the time he contested the elections, did not have any other citizenship apart from the Ghanaian citizenship. Jachi Quayson, at the time he swore the oath to become a member of parliament, did not have any other citizenship. Adamu Dramani Sakande, at the time he contested the election, had 3 different nationalities. Adamu Dramani Sakande, at the time he swore the oath to become a member of parliament on the 9th of 6th and 7th, was still holding 3 citizenships. Adamu Dramani Sakande, after he had sworn the oath and became a member of parliament, was still traveling with his British passport. Show me Jachi Quayson's other passport apart from his Ghanaian passport.
So that is the difference.
They're completely different. They are comparing apples and alugutugui. Completely different.
Soursop.
They're completely different.
Right.
So and then that to force into. But
he's granted relief now. He can go to his constituency and campaign and all of that.
Not exactly. The judge would give a verdict on Friday.
Tomorrow.
But what the judge has said is that he can skip tomorrow's hearing and be in the constituency. To think in the first place that the judge would have said that on the day of his by-election should appear in court. You see, with a greater respect to our judiciary, justice must not just be done, but it must be seen to be done. And justice must be served to all manner of persons. The judges must bear in mind, look, the respected JSC is no longer Chief Justice. He's now a citizen like all of us. So they should all bear in mind that one day they would also leave the bench.
Right.
Now, Atu Forsen and all the shenanigans that are going on there, for me, again, simply because Atu Forsen has chosen to expose the wrath in this government, they are turning the guns on Atu Forsen. How do you blame a deputy minister who on the
but he signed on for it. There is no testament, according to what we've been told, there's no testament that the minister at the time gave him such rights.
That's false.
Especially with the sums of money, the directive to release funds for that.
That's false. Again, Atu Forsen was not the procuring officer. He was not the procurement officer. It was not his ministry that bought the things. So you see, this is just about trying to gag Atu Forsen because at that time he was ranking on finance. He was spitting fire on them. Now he's minority leader. How do you gag him? It will fail. Let's move on.
But the court system will do what it will.
You see, if the court system works properly and the law is applied with common sense and legalese, there is no reason why Atu Forsen should not work.
President Akufo-Addo says, regardless of the fact that those ambulances were not fit for purpose, but there have been concessions made. One of the organizations involved wanted to pay about €2 million out of the 2.3
That is the organization. That is not Atu Forsen.
Right.
I've seen the mission. They say Atu Forsen wants to refund money. Atu Forsen did not take any money.
Let's talk about the credit ratings agencies. The president has described them as reckless. Professor Lord Mensah says it is only because Mr. President became angry that his government couldn't go out there and borrow. Your take on that?
Our president is an over-pampered spoiled kid.
What did you say?
Our president, Nando Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is an over-pampered spoiled kid.
You're calling... Wait. You're calling our president a kid?
Oh, he's behaving like one. He's throwing tantrums.
Isn't that a bit of a low blow?
If the president...
A man of almost 80 years, you're calling him...
So then he should stop behaving like a spoiled kid. Our president is throwing tantrums on the international scale and embarrassing us. It's like you going to a church service with your child and your child is rolling on the floor and screaming because they didn't allow him dip his hand in the offering bowl.
That's what our president is doing. This is the same man who ran around with these rating agencies and their ratings when he was candidate and used it to poo-poo the Mahama administration. He has overseen the worst economy in our country, reduced our country's economy to junk status, toilet paper status. And when they are telling him, he says that why should they tell him the truth? Our president hates to be told the truth.
But the ratings are getting better. The ratings are getting better.
Because you're not paying your debts. The ratings are a value of what your finances look like. Today, Ghana's finances are cosmetic. Let us start paying our debts. And let's see what will happen to our finances. Let's see what will happen to our balance of payment. The president should stop embarrassing us. Look, you failed, Mr. President. You've been abysmal. You are a colossal failure when it comes to governance in this country. You will go down in history as the worst president in Ghana's history. Worse than even military dictators. You should begin to lick your wounds and show humility. And not go around throwing tantrums like a spoiled over-pampered kid and disgracing our country. It is good enough that you have created a mess in our economy. It is worse that you are embarrassing us on the international scene. Mr. President, you and your hand, let's stop it.
Let's wrap on these two fronts very quickly.
Yes.
In some 3 minutes, if you can manage the two. Yvonne Nelson's new book, I Am Not Yvonne Nelson. Yay or nay? As you would say in Parliament, yeah. Or and I'm sure you've seen bits of it. I don't know whether you've read it. And then there's also LGBTQ. It's come to the fore again, a lot of talk about it. I want to know, are you going to pursue the bill in Parliament? What is the status of the bill? Okay. In recent times in the UAE, you know the new Spider-Verse movie, there's a portion with an LGBTQ image and all of that. They've banned it there. What do you think about that? Just tell us, and you've spoken about the consequences of this fight on you.
Yeah.
These 2 points, very quickly.
Okay. So I think Yvonne Nelson's book is a very bold attempt at a tell-it-all. However, following the commentary that's coming out, it appears that it's not really a tell-it-all. It's a selective tell-it-all. There are questions about some of the narrations that have been made. We're beginning to see a lot of pushback on social media, people disputing some of the things she's saying, and people adding things to it.
Well, that's to be expected for a book like that.
Yeah, but I still hold the view that certain things ought to remain private. No matter how blatant you want to be or how bold you want to be, certain things, that's why there's a word called privacy.
Some have said that element shows her lack of emotional intelligence. Do you agree?
I'll leave the jury out on that. Before the headlines become some judge says Yvonne Nelson lacks emotional intelligence. And then that becomes a whole new social media thing. I would leave the jury out. I won't comment on that.
Do you think she should have written this book?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not against, and I think people must write books. I'm working on something. People must write books to tell their stories, but you must be. I don't want to use the phrase emotional intelligence because you've used it, but you must be able to measure what you put out and what you don't put out. I mean, imagine me putting out a book and chronicling all the times me and my wife have had a fight. To what intent and purpose does that serve? Okay, and putting out the sordid details of fights or putting out sordid details from your private life that go a long way to hurt other people outside of you. You begin to question some of those things, you know. But let me say hi to Tracy. I think she's been a very
Tracy Success?
Yeah, I've seen her tweet, and I think that I celebrate her as a woman. This is someone she's worked in my constituency with her foundation. She came to work with my office and did some distribution, and my respect for her has gone very up. I mean, her commentary on this matter makes me understand why Saka stuck with her for all this while. And Sarkodie is someone I've known for very many years. At the time I gave Sarkodie a show, he was a backup artist. He was a backup artist to RTVs. When I took him to Cape Coast in my previous life as an event organizer.
Around what time was this?
It was 2010.
2010.
Yeah, that's the time.
Around the same time.
At that time, no, 2009, 2010. At that time, the main act was RTVs, and the song was Ademado, Adego Crazy. They were the big acts. So it was then Sarkodie, Skillions, J-So, they were backup artists and all of that. But anyway, that's a different line. But I think that
LGBTQ.
On the LGBTQ thing, I honestly believe that it's a bill we will pass. I think that the world is coming to the realization that where Ghana stands is the place to stand. We're beginning to see pushbacks in the US. We've seen Florida pass legislation to limit trans concerts. We've seen the Secretary of Defense issue a statement from the Pentagon banning trans shows on U.S. Air Force bases in this month. You're beginning to see a pushback. Last year alone, there were 331 legislations in the United States state houses of legislature against LGBTQ activity. The world is taking a stand.
You've seen the consequences for Uganda. I mean, there have been threats. There have been threats. Aren't you concerned?
There is no consequence. What they've done is they've withdrawn their visa. Take your visa.
But there have been consequences for you, personally.
Oh, that one, there are plenty, but I'm like Ingekante. If you pour water on stone, it doesn't do anything. You see, the harder they come, the farther I push. And so for me, this bill will pass it. They've gone to court. They've gotten two stooges of theirs to go to court. You know, one is in the High Court, one is in the Supreme Court. I'm wondering why the courts are going to want to even entertain any case at this point in time, because the courts must bear in mind that no court can issue a judgment or give directives to the president that you can't discuss this matter in cabinet. It is the prerogative of parliament to pass legislation.
Right.
And so no court should think that they have the power to tell parliament that you can pass this bill or you can't pass this bill. What they can do is what they did with the narcotics bill, the marijuana thing we did. After parliament has passed this bill, you can pass a judgment saying that parliament did not go through all the processes and nullify the law. But you can't tell parliament that you cannot sit and pass a law.
In the end,
that's
though,
not the remit
even if you pass this, the buck stops with the president.
When we get there, let's see if he won't sign or he won't sign. I thought he went to the Apostolic Church, because when we speak, they tell us that the president went to the Apostolic Church and said it will not be under his watch that LGBTQ will flourish or would come to fruition in Ghana. That's what he told Apostolic. Is it an Apostolic or the Anglican Church? One of them, I think, an Anglican Church in Manfi. So the president will be given an opportunity to walk his talk. It's simple.
Thanks for joining us this morning. The next conversation we're having has to do with sickling cell status. Do you know your status?
Yes.
Oh, wait, that's good to know.
I'm AA.
You're AA. Okay, so you're one of the 75% or so. And now the encouragement is that those who are AA should also intermingle with those who are carriers so we can eradicate
it and get a number of ASs.
Those. Well, Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, Sam George, and by the way, congratulations on retaining. I don't think we've spoken.
I was waiting to start a fight with you off air if you didn't congratulate me.
But I started by congratulating you.
I would have said that you were one of the people who was hoping that I get kicked out. But now that you have congratulated me, I know that you are for me. Because you're either for me or against me. There's no middle ground.
Hey. Mantaya. Sam Jatta George, Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, joining us in the studio.
That's been good.
Stay with us. Up next, we have a conversation on sickle cell. Do you know your status? We'll be right back.
Hello there, good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. I'm Bernice Abube-Dulansa. Well, today you've heard conversations had on narcotics, and we had that conversation with Sam George, MP for Ningo Prampram. It's now time to talk health, and today we're talking about sickle cell. And I am so excited because I've been joined by Charlotte Owusu. She's the founder and CEO for Sickle Cell Condition Advocates. And I would love for her to be sharing her story with us. And we've also got Quayson Yeboah, who is a sickle cell patient. And quite recently, there has been enough reason for us to encourage people, especially persons hoping to marry and have children, to check their sickling status. And today, you would understand why it's important. Good morning to you, ma'am. Good morning to you, Quayson. How are you?
Hi, thank you.
Great to have you here. So let me start with you. What inspired the founding of your organization?
I had my only 2 children with sickle cell condition. When I had the first one, I didn't know until I was pregnant with the second one, and The first one was getting sick almost every week. We were going to Kolebu, in and out of Kolebu. And so the people checked and they saw she had sickle cell. She was a female. And when I had the second one, as Kweku, he also had sickle cell. So I started as a teacher. I thought I should teach people. So when I even go to the clinic, I would tell them, I will have to know to be able to teach. So those who had children who were grown, I will ask them what we were doing, what we should do, doctors, nurses, everybody I met. I wanted to know more about sickle cell. And even traveled outside during summertime. Almost every summer I was in UK, sickle cell, and got affiliated to Sickle Cell Society of UK. So I got a lot of information. So when I came back home, and there was a time I was asked to make a presentation on sickle cell, a mother's view. Kolebu chose me that I should go and give that presentation. It was the first sickle cell conference in Ghana, international conference. So all people came from all over the world to listen to us. And I was chosen to give this presentation. And just 2 weeks before I went into, I'd give it the topic, and I started 2 months earlier. And I was preparing, and when in 2 weeks' time, when I was to go and the conference was to come on, that was in 1995. I lost my first daughter.
Oh no!
Just 2 weeks before the time, and they thought I couldn't do it. I said, I will do it. I have to tell the people it's a serious thing. We should look at it.
I am so sorry, because I was just going to ask where she is, because Kweku is here with us. I am so sorry. What exactly happened? Was it a crisis?
It's a normal crisis. You know, they have so many crises, pneumonia, infection, so many things come to them. We'll discuss, we can talk about that. She had pneumonia, and I went in. That time we were living in Tema. I'm always ready for them. At any time they say, I have this ache, I have this headache, I will rush them to Kulebus. I had a small car I was using, so I was quickly rush them to Kulebus. So I went the first day, they didn't see anything. They were saying, as if it's temperature and pain and that kind of thing, the normal crisis. They didn't admit her. The second day I said, no, it's still worrying her. And they gave us some more drugs, and then we had to go back home. No drips. I remember very well. They didn't give us drips, anything. And I went the third day, evening, about 4. She was not feeling fine. And I said, no, I can't sleep with this girl this night. So let me take her. At that time, 4 p.m., I took her to Kolebu. And, you know, the clinic is not open at 4. They close at 2:30, 3. So I went to the doctor's house.
Wow.
Yes, I walked.
You really fought for
Yes,
her.
I drove to the doctor. I knew, you know, I had developed a relationship with him. So I went to the house of the doctor. The doctor tried to see he saw he couldn't do anything about it. So together we all we took her to the hospital, emergency in Kolebu. She was admitted. And we were there, you know, I had to sleep there. The doctor even brought me a blanket to be able to sleep on a bench in front of the emergency. So the night I couldn't sleep, but you know, sleep by all means.
It will come.
At a certain time it will come. I went off maybe around 1, 2. By 4:30, 5. They called me at about 5. I heard a nurse call me. Where is Akosia's mother? Akosia's mother, please. And then I didn't know what they were going to tell. Akosia says she wants water. I say, oh, my daughter is alive. I quickly took water for her. And then then I realized she had been put on oxygen the whole night. So in the morning, they had taken the oxygen off her, and they asked that you can't be in the emergency all the time. So we had to go to the ward. I was with her for some time, about 9, 10. They said, no, you can't be here. You have to go and come back by 4.
To take her home?
By 4 to know what is happening, admission and treatment or whatever. So I left her. She told me, Mom, go and come. And I said, oh, I have to wash you down. I said, no, you go and come. and wash me down. I want to rest a little. Then I went, a friend took me to her place. And then when it was about 4:30, we were driving to the place. I always say that my people gave me support. My sister and the husband were driving behind. We don't know how they came in. And then we went to Kulebu. When we climbed out, I saw my daughter's bed not there. And I know the condition there. I've been in the emergency room when they were babies, you know. If the bed is off, it means there's something. And I had left, you know, when I was going, I left her. I told the girl sleeping next, a young lady, a girl not even up to 15, about 10, 12, say, oh, please, watch her for me.
How old was Akosia at this time?
Akosia was 17. So I said, watch her for me. I'll be back at 4. They say, I can't be here, so I'll go home and come back. When the bed was not there, I said, where is she? She said, she just turned her hands this way. Then I knew, I understood. I started screaming, and they took me to one of them. And my friend was saying, no, don't go, baby, they've taken her to a place to give her the oxygen again. I was there, help me. How can I take this? And suddenly, I heard my friend screaming too. I said, wow, she's gone.
She's gone. So you just heard Akosia's story, and that's what inspired the creation of this advocacy group towards creating awareness on sickle cell. You may hear Akosia's story and not appreciate it if you are someone who's not been close to that situation before. But Kweku is here. How old was Kweku at the time?
He was 16, getting to 17. Okay. No, they are close, 16, about 17.
Yeah, you were 1 year. So that was your only sister.
Yes.
What was it like for you knowing that you also have sickle cell?
Oh, sickle cell. I found out sickle cell was a big deal when I was about 7. Okay. My folks were arguing, and I was like, what is it? My dad was like, he can't do the relationship anymore. He can't do the relationship anymore. So I was like, why you can't do the relationship? What does it mean? After some time, my mom moved out of the house.
So this caused a separation?
Yes.
Because, you see, and sorry to interject, I'll come back to you quickly, because you need to understand how enormous the work is. It's a lot of hard work taking care of children with sickle cell. So your parents separated because of that, and that's what for you made you realize that no, my condition is serious.
Oh, the pain will let you know the condition is serious. Yeah. The pain would alert you that there's something wrong with you. When I was small, my hands used to swell. Okay. Now it would hurt all day. When they're playing, you can't play. You know you are different, so you walk around and you're not sure what is happening. Now, when they separated because of the disease, I was like, hey, this thing is a big deal. Like, Daddy, why can't you just forget about it? And then you grow up to find out that, go through what you have gone through. You have kids now, God bless my wife. And then they get sick and you are like, this man neglected me because of these sicknesses. Me, myself, I was very hurt about how he neglected me. But your child gets sick once, your child gets sick twice, your child gets the third time. I'm like, well, this is going on for a very long time. And I see my life, it has gone on all my life. And I have kids, they get sick a bit, and I'm like, no, if they were getting sick like the way I am getting sick, I'll leave the girl. Yeah. Me, myself,
you won't be able to handle it.
You won't be able to handle it. But when you are coming together, you are in love. When you are coming together as man and wife, you are in love. But you should care about what happens to the individuals you are going to bring into this world. The individuals that you are going to, your offspring, one should say.
Yeah.
You should care what happens to them, your kids. Most of the times, the guys will chicken out. I think my dad chickened out because
What's your relationship with him now?
He's gone.
Oh, sorry about that.
But I found out after he's gone that no, I made a mistake. Because I was bored with the man.
You were angry.
I was angry at
that he left you.
Yes.
Okay. You were 16 when your sister passed away. Was there any point in your life after that you also thought you were going to leave?
Oh, it was at 7. It was in the argument. So you heard him saying that Uncle Awe the 16, 17.
Okay.
So when you hear those arguments and all your life, you know you are going to die at 16, 17, max 18. And 17, your sister is left. And now you're waiting. You're waiting to go.
Did that make you lose your drive to live? The knowledge that I could die at any time, or it rather spurred you on and rather motivated you to do something with your life?
Oh, you see, when you are young and you are still in school, there's really nothing you want to do. But when you finish school, when you pass 16, you pass 17, you pass 18, now you are done with uni, and you're like, you're still here. You got to do something. Charlie, you can't. But when you are doing uni, now you have to make the decision. Now my body is hurting, so I can't really work for somebody. This your space. Everybody will say the air conditioning should be on. I'll say, Charlie, let's switch it off.
Because it will affect you.
Because it is affecting you. And so you know that you can't work in the corporate setting.
The setting is not made with you in mind.
Yes. No. And so you decide, what can I do? What can I do? At a point, my dad was like, I should find some school and finish the uni. And I'm like, okay, I'll go and do Polytechnic. I'll go and do fashion design, textiles.
Did you leave university at any point?
No, I did. I finished the SHS, and then I didn't really want to go to uni anymore. My dad was like, I should do uni. And so I was like, okay, then I'll do the Polytechnic. And so I go into the Polytechnic. Even to go into the Polytechnic, my mom is worried. I couldn't do boarding school.
Yeah.
So I did day in Chemu. I'm done with day school, SHS. I need to make the decision to
move out of the house. So because mommy was very protective of you because
she's lost one. You know it happened. They told you are gonna go, and you yourself, you know you might go. And so you are like, Jolly, whatever can happen should happen.
Permit me to ask, if you don't mind sharing, how old you are now, and what you think is what, has kept you. Because like you say, and it's something you hear on the streets, right? People say, sickle cell, they don't go beyond a certain age. Or my child, they are 20, 25. But you're here.
Yes.
I'm sure there are people who are watching who may have a child with a condition, or they have the condition themselves, and they are thinking to themselves, did you do anything? Did you do anything different? Is there something that we can also learn from you in order to, manage the situation?
Okay, early in life, I noticed that you can use your brain for everything. Your brain, if you tell your brain that you're going to go, you will go. You will die, literally. So you have to just psych yourself that I'll be here.
So it's a thing of faith and mental fortitude.
Yes, you decide you are going to be here. I don't know it will come, but we won't go. We won't go. We'll be here for a very long time. So you go into Polytechnic, first time in a boarding setting, you notice, this thing will be difficult too. And then you have to manage everything, where you are lying down, how your roommates are doing the room, what is happening, who are their friends, who are your friends, who is coming to the room at what time. Everything has to be managed. When you are learning, you can't learn in the evening. You just learn when you have to learn. And then people will be like, this guy, he's making noise. You go down right now. I'm like, well, we are here. We'll see who will go down. And so you try, but it will take you down over and over and over again. But you have to decide that you'll come back.
When was the last time you had a crisis?
Now, I'm having one. I'm having one now.
Okay, what others?
Yesterday we did the program outside. It was raining. And then I was in the rain for a bit, so my knees and my legs, they are hurting right now. My left hand too is aching. And so you have to just decide that, there's pain in your body, but we are doing this.
So what do you do to manage the symptoms?
Oh, you just, you keep moving, you forget about it, you pay attention to what you're doing right now.
Okay.
You talk to the...
It's not something that you can take medication for.
Oh, you can get addicted if you decide to do painkillers.
because it's something that happens often.
Yes, and so you decide, I want a painkiller, it will knock it off. But it will knock it off for some time, and then it will come back.
So for you, life is constant pain?
Yes.
Wow.
Every day, not some of the times. Every day. When you tell people, they are like, he's so exaggerating. It's fine. It's in my body. It's fine. Since I was a child, I've been asking that God put it on my fingertips so that I'll touch you and it will come.
So that people can feel what you're feeling. Interesting. But what do you do now, and how does it affect your job?
Okay, so I finished the Polytechnic. I did events. Actually, there was one semester of events management in fashion design and textile studies in Kumasi Polytechnic. So I started doing events. Now I run the Ghana Higher Education Fair. I've created a platform where the higher education institutions meet senior high schools. So I show them to the senior high schools. I think that we have a short period of time we will live in this world. So we really need to be impactful. I think the most time we waste is between senior high school to uni. And so I hope that our kids will make the decisions very quickly, enter higher education and start their work life. Do something for this country that we love. And so I've been doing that for the past 16 years. It's very difficult to put it back together, but I think we've done a lot over the years. We've done a lot over the years. So I do Ghana Education Fair, and then I make a bit, and then I sponsor my mom doing this, and then I follow her around. It's been difficult this year because it hasn't been difficult. It's been successful this year because multimedia has smiled. Multimedia has been so gracious to us. We have been helped greatly, telling people that this is a problem. Let us fix it. It's just about everybody knowing. Tell your child, tell your friend, tell everybody to know their sickle cell status. If it's not in you, you are AA, you are fine. But there's 23% of people who are AS. They come together, and the S from the father, the S from the mother goes into the child. And then the child will suffer till.
Yeah. And you made a statement about when you're in love, how you usually lose your senses because you're madly in love. But when you start doing the hospital trips, and unfortunately for Charlotte, when your husband leaves and you have to now handle the burden alone, that's when you realize that, it wasn't love after all. So this morning we are preaching. All you just need to do is to walk into a health facility, right, and ask that you're coming to check your sickling status. Yes. They will help you. They'll give you advice. They'll counsel you as well. I know now churches are doing well, especially for people who want to marry. Their churches insist that you know your sickling status. They won't stop you from marrying, though. They would advise and caution you. So, Kweku, what was it for you looking for love? The first thing is, please, AA or not, before I go deeper into this. I don't want my heart to be committed. And then, what was it like for you looking for love?
Oh, it's difficult. I mean, if you have the information about somebody who is sickle celled, you meet your daughter brings somebody into the house and he's like, or SSO. The dad is like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this in my family.
There's a lot of stigma.
Yes. And so, family after family, they won't let me in.
You had that encounter?
Encounters.
Oh, Lord.
I'm sorry, but it's difficult. Very difficult. And people will say that, they are stronger than you, but it's somehow we are sharp. We are very brilliant. literally we are very, very close.
Nature has a way of compensating. You get it? It's interesting. There's a lady I know who has a hearing problem. I mean, you're literally in her face. She can't hear you, but she can smell food burning before it gets burnt. I don't know if you get what I mean.
That's great.
Her sense of smell compensates for the loss of her hearing. So I get what you mean about people. But how did you succeed at love? Because you said you have children.
Yes.
You sent some shout outs to your wife.
Okay, so to my wife, Loretta, thank you very much. I'm grateful for everything you've done for me and with me. I met her, I saw her and I was like, nah, this is a nice girl. I want this girl. So I waited for 7 years. Yes, just observing her, hoping.
7 years. Oh, wow.
Hoping that I can pop the question. And then she okays my decision.
Her family was accepting?
Yes.
And she's AA?
Yes.
Would you have been disappointed if she was otherwise?
Ooh.
If she was AS?
Yes, I would have been disappointed.
And you wouldn't have gone in at all?
I didn't commit. I didn't even go the love direction I want to. No. I just go like, Charlie, I'm sickle cell. Have you tested your status? He said, yeah, I know, I'm AA. I'm like, sweet.
Smart guy.
So now let's start this.
Okay.
And then you go step by step until she says yes.
Right.
Yeah, but it has to be planned out. It has to be orchestrated.
Right. It's important. So let me wrap up with you. What has it been like for you working, trying to get people to understand? And you know, the statistics you shared, very important. This can be eradicated. Thankfully, it's scientific. So if we decide that we aren't going to marry AS, which will create that probability of having an SS, eventually we would realize that we are having healthier children without sickles. So it's a thing of maths, it's a thing of science. And so I'd like for you to share with me the work you've been doing in your advocacy. What gives you joy as you do this work?
Yes, for all the time we've been in this job, you know, our first thing was to make sure that those who were sick, those who had a sickle cell condition, mothers who had them and they didn't know what to do, we helped them.
Great.
So we came together as a team in Tema, trying to bring all the mothers or parents together, and then we call doctors, call dietitians, and you know, we try to empower them to be able to take them, giving them the hope that these children can live. There's nowhere in the Bible they've said one would die before age 70. So you just depend also on God and do your part as a mother, giving him, caring for him or her the way it should go. And then, you know, making sure whenever he's in crisis, we don't go on the counter to buy medicine. Take him to the health facility.
Right.
And then you get it. After that, after getting a lot of people together in Tema, we decided to go into fortunately, we were blessed to have a doctor in town, Dr. Kaiko, in town, Kaiko Clinic Hospital. And he allowed us in to have a place where we meet. And then finally he gave us a place to run a clinic. He himself asked a friend, the late Professor Ankrabedu, and may his soul rest in peace. He came every week to see our people.
Oh, wow.
Yes, in Kaiko, free, not charging us anything. Dr. Kaiko Hospital too, Dr. Kaiko didn't charge us anything. We were there. And we realized there was some who couldn't come to the private hospitals. So we went to General Hospital and had a meeting with the management, the director and his team, her team. She was a lady, Charity. And then they agreed that we have a clinic there. So we were to set up a clinic there. One of the first, when you entered General Hospital, the first consulting.
Tema General Hospital.
Yes, General Hospital. The first door, the clinic in the left, or the first consulting was given to us. Then we had to train doctors. Can we do it? We asked Kolebu, the experts, to come to Tema. We wrote to the hospitals, both public and private, asking the doctors that we're going to have a program on sickle cell, so that they in touch. We were saying they should just come and share ideas, and then they were there. The experts, one in child, gynae, one from dermatology. No, just all the people who would matter. Yes, the adults. We have people, doctors who are okay. Looking, experts in looking after the adults, children, like and then we have the children's one, and then we had Dr. Kaiko and others who came. We had about 5 doctors, and they came and did a very good program for them one afternoon. After that, they realized, they need to always go ahead to do something. And then those in town, those in the general hospital took care of the clinic, and I have to thank God that the clinic has saved a lot of lives.
And it's been running till now.
Now. And the doctors there confess, and that is where we refer our clients to most of the time. We are in this part of it. So if even some callers from Accra say, if you can come there, we know, we are so sure of the people, expert care there. And they've done a lot for us. We are very grateful.
I am so happy you channeled your pain into something that benefits a lot of people. And I'm sure there's somebody who's thinking, how do I contact you? If there are people who are willing to even support your work, people who are even willing to partner, how do they contact your group, and what numbers are there to call?
Yes.
Okay, should I take?
Yeah, quickly, yeah.
You can call us on 024 666 0012 or 0244 655 331.
Can you go over it again?
Okay, let me go over it. 024 666 0012 or 0244 655 331.
Okay.
We want to come together as the Sickle Cell Group. There are several small people doing everything around. So we want to come together as a group. Recently, after the death of Heroine, there was an approval for sickle cell to be put on the health insurance. However, most of the drugs, even though it's on health insurance,
and sorry, who is on Heroine?
Sorry. It's Professor Heroine.
Okay.
He's a hematologist specialist from the US.
He's the one mom referenced?
No.
Okay, that's a different one.
This is a different one. But he was in Philadelphia. He brought the testing for newborn screening. He brought the idea to test newborn screening so that the sickle cell people do not die at an early age.
Young, because we don't know.
We don't know. And so if you test and you do antibiotics, it's likely we can manage the situation. I think it's by his work that has made most of the sickle cell people now grow up to a certain age. We're grateful for God for giving us his life. Now, after his death, God called him. At his funeral, the vice president promised that he'll put us on health insurance because basically we go in and out of the hospital a whole lot of times.
It's very often.
Yes, but some of the drugs as well are not supplied by the health insurance system. So we need to come together as a group and see how we can help ourselves, how we can come together. So we are hoping that the other groups should contact us. Let us all sit down and then let's push an agenda so that we reduce the numbers. Our aim is to reduce the numbers. People shouldn't come together. That's why we are focused on premarital counseling.
It's important.
So that everybody knows their status and then they don't give it to their children. And then when you give it to your children, it will burn a hole in your pocket. And so we are telling people that for self-preservation, they should just know their status before they fall in love.
Okay. And it will also drain you emotionally. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but we've run out of time. And I'm grateful to you for joining me to share your story. Yes. And please do contact Kweku Kwatingeboy in Charlotte. Charlotte is founder and CEO of the Sickle Cell Condition Awareness. And this was after she lost her own daughter to the condition. And that's why she's pushing so hard for you to check your sickling status before you get married is important. And Kweku Kwatinyabwa, his son, is a sickle cell patient who's been sharing his story with us, a story of survival, a story of perseverance. He says it's all up here. He's fighting it in his head, but he doesn't want your child to go through what he's going through. He's actually in a crisis now, but he's enduring it. So please, let's pay attention. If you missed any part of the conversation, please, you can get onto YouTube. Important information we've been sharing. But that'll be all for this edition of the AM show. I'm so grateful that you made time to join us this morning. Benjamin and I will be back again tomorrow with another exciting edition. Up next is News Desk.